Chapter 1141 Number of Futures. Chapter 1141 Number of Futures. A Tao creator could not spy on the future of another Tao creator. In other words, in the future they could spy on, a new Tao creator would not appear. At most, they would have the cultivation of the Great Tao Supreme Realm. They couldn't tell which Great Tao Supreme had the chance to become a Tao creator. As the Creator Lord, Hanju couldn't tell which Tao creators could reach the Creator Lord realm, but he could see how many Tao creators there were in the future. Karma kept changing, and the number of future Tao creators kept increasing. The future in which Han Liang and Ji Xianxian became Tao creators was very distant. Ji Xianxian severed karma after he entered the origin space-time. However, Hanju saw him appear space-time again, but the karma that had been severed wouldn't recover because of his appearance. Heavenly Venerate Sun was previously related to Ji Xianxian. The two of them were now colluding, and had even taken in the future Han Liang. The gray-robed man who had captured Han Liang was the future Han Liang. Now that Han Liang was in Hanju's hands, it was very difficult for the three of them to succeed in the future. Box and Oval. C0M. If he was really forced, Hanju could directly destroy the entire space-time and recreate everything. A Tao creator could also destroy everything below the Tao creator realm. The reason why it didn't happen before was that there were too many Tao creators, and they restrained each other. However, Hanju could be fearless as the only Creator Lord in existence. However, since he could reach the Creator Lord realm in hundreds of millions of years, there might be a second example in the future. Therefore, he couldn't cultivate in seclusion for too long. In the future, it would not only be Ji Xianxian, Han Liang, and Heavenly Venerate Sun. The other Tao creators would also be the same. There were almost no independent Tao creators. Hanju looked at Han Liang for a while before continuing to cultivate. The three of them could not do anything. The reason why they kept traveling through space and time was that the existence that would suppress them in the future was another Tao creator faction, the three primordial fiend celestials. It was precisely because of this that Heavenly Venerate Sun did not dare to interfere in the three fiend celestials' past, afraid that he would disturb them and cause them to pursue him from the future. The disciples in the Tao field came and went. Han Liang's existence was also known by the entire hidden sect. They all knew that he was the Divine Might Heavenly Sage's grandson and was doted on. He was personally taught by the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. Han Liang's name began to spread in the endless era. The evil Heavenly Emperor couldn't help but visit Hanju in his dreams, but he rejected him. Han Liang was very important. Hanju was afraid that the evil Heavenly Emperor couldn't control him. Time passed quickly. Han Liang became stronger day after day, while Chu Xiaoqi was still struggling in the immortal world. After leaving Hanju, Chu Xiaoqi's comprehension growth became extremely slow. He was only an ordinary human, and his potential was naturally not strong. However, he also had a good immortal position in the Divine Clan. But compared to Chenju, he was getting further and further away. Chenju had already become the most dazzling existence in this immortal world. His talent was unparalleled, and his beautiful name even spread to other immortal worlds. Chu Xiaoqi and Chenju were two vastly different characters. No one expected them to be related by blood. After parting with Chu Xiaoqi, Hanju didn't care too much about him. In any case, this kid could reincarnate even if he died. He had already helped enough in this life. He still had to walk the path of life himself. Of course, part of it was because of Han Liang. He had another grandson now. 10,000 years passed like smoke. On this day, Hanju was teaching Han Liang in the Taoist temple. Han Liang was still so short. He looked like he was in his teens. It was difficult to imagine that he was already 10,000 years old. Han Liang sat in front of him with a vexed expression. He really couldn't understand the mystical power Hanju had just taught. It was normal to find it difficult to understand, because Hanju was teaching the ultimate origin heaven seal. Han Liang did not have the ultimate origin power, so he would create his own heaven seal. So far, Han Liang's race had yet to be named. The name was very important, especially for such a creation race. So Hanju didn't take the initiative and let Han Liang discover and define it himself. Hanju used his Dao voice to help Han Liang, as his brows quickly relaxed. At this moment, Hanju seemed to sense something. He left a clone in the Taoist temple, and his main body jumped out of the Dao field. He came to the Dao mystic realm, and arrived at an immortal world. At this moment, the divine clan was attacking the nearby devil world. The Dao mystic realm had been established for a period of time. The various worlds in the mystic realm had already begun to interact. The so-called devil world was actually another divine clan. If they did not define the enemy as the devil race, it would not be easy to mobilize morale. As an immortal god, Chu Xiaoqi naturally had to participate. At this moment he was targeted. What targeted him was not the living beings of the two worlds, but an existence that surpassed the Dao mystic realm. Huangzuantian. Chu Xiaoqi traveled through the starry sky in an extremely sorry state. No matter where he fled, every time he turned around, Huang Zuantian would follow behind him, scaring him so much that he continued to escape. Huang Zuantian kept chasing after Chu Xiaoqi as he thought to himself, "Where did this kid come from? Even I can't figure it out." Indeed, the Dao mystic realm is not that simple. Huang Zuantian also offered his mortal world after the Dao mystic realm was established for a period of time. Huang Zuantian also personally checked the Dao mystic realm. Chu Xiaoqi attracted him. His potential was average, but he could not deduce this person's future. If it were any other mighty figure, they would probably not notice Chu Xiaoqi. However, Huang Zuantian was once a calamity life controller, and was extremely sensitive to this. He felt that Chu Xiaoqi was definitely not simple. After being chased for a long time, Chu Xiaoqi suddenly stopped and cursed. "Dog, kill me already. Stop humiliating me." He was considered firm, but he still trembled in fear when Huang Zuantian appeared in front of him. Huang Zuantian wore a dignified black robe, with the figure of the primordial fiend celestial printed on it. His aura was definitely the strongest existence Chu Xiaoqi had ever seen. He was even stronger than his grandfather, and the master of the divine clan. In front of such an existence he, Chu Xiaoqi, could not escape at all. However, Chu Xiaoqi still wanted to die heroically. Unfortunately, he still couldn't find Tang Wan or see his grandfather again. After 10,000 years, Chu Xiaoqi's impression of Tang Wan and his grandfather was no longer that deep. He was already independent, but he still missed them occasionally. Huang Zuantian asked, "Tell me about your life." Chu Xiaoqi cursed, "Just search my soul if you have the ability." Huang Zuantian immediately reached out. Chu Xiaoqi froze and could not move. However, Huang Zuantian searched for Chu Xiaoqi's memories but found nothing. It was as if they were blank. He was shocked. Dao creator. This child was definitely related to a Dao creator. If he was really a Dao creator, he would definitely be warned and might even die. But now, Huang Zuantian thought of another possibility. The Dao creator was omniscient and omnipotent. He would definitely sense that he had come into contact with Chu Xiaoqi. He did not warn him or attack him. There was only one possibility. The other party tolerated him. Huang Zuantian immediately retracted his hand. Chu Xiaoqi woke up and looked at him warily. "Become my disciple," Huang Zuantian said directly. "Thank you for reading on my box novel. Calm." Chapter 1142 Eye-Opening Experience. Chapter 1142 Eye-Opening Experience. Become his disciple? Chu Xiaoqi was stunned. He couldn't believe his ears. This twist. Huang Zuantian stared at him and said, "It's difficult for you to escape this world with your current potential. As for me, I can bring you to a higher sky. Think about it carefully. I won't kill you even if you refuse. Farewell." Chu Xiaoqi's heart beat faster. No wonder this fellow did not kill him previously. Chu Xiaoqi took a deep breath and asked, "What's your cultivation level? Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal? Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal? Ha 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 ha." Huang Zuantian laughed wantonly, his tone filled with disdain and mockery. Chu Xiaoqi was shocked. To be so disdainful of the legendary Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Could this person be an illusory sage in the legends? Box and Oval. C0M. Chu Xiaoqi was completely tempted. If he did not capture such a mighty figure, ever since he left his grandfather, although he had encountered opportunities, They were not opportunities that could allow him to be reborn. He gradually realized his mediocreness, but he had always been holding back his anger, something called unwillingness. Chu Xiaoqi gritted his teeth and asked, "Why do you think highly of me?" Huang Zuentian said bluntly, "You had a great opportunity in your previous life. Your providence is unpredictable. Perhaps you're very weak now, but I feel that you might be extraordinary in the future. Perhaps I'm the benefactor who will help you soar. It depends on whether you're willing to believe me." Chu Xiaoqi couldn't help but think of the grandfather he had met when he was young. Could it be that his grandfather had also taken a liking to him, because of his providence? "Indeed, I was born extraordinary." Chu Xiaoqi hesitated for a moment, but still chose to follow Huang Zuentian. The reason was very simple. He could no longer grow in the divine clan. He deeply realized how weak he was in this war between the gods and devils. Chen Ju's attacks were unstoppable. In contrast, he was only cannon fodder. They clearly entered the divine race in the same batch, and Chen Ju was the same age as him. Huang Zuentian said, "I'll show you how tiny you are first." He waved his right hand and brought Chu Xiaoqi to the top of the Tao mystic realm. Chu Xiaoqi looked down and saw countless grains of light scattered in all directions. Those are small worlds. Every small world has the immortal world, the mortal world, and the netherworld. Huang Zuentian introduced, causing Chu Xiaoqi's eyes to widen. How big was the immortal world he was in? From this angle, it was actually so small. Huang Zuentian brought him out of the Tao mystic realm and arrived at the blank domain. Unlike the universe in the Tao mystic realm, the starry sky was pale, but there were still dense lights of various colors dotted in all directions. Where we were just now is one of the worlds below. It contains the small world I introduced to you earlier. There are as many as stars. Huang Zuentian's introduction shocked Chu Xiaoqi. A heaven beyond the heavens. This was Chu Xiaoqi's feeling now. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of Huang Zuentian, scaring Chu Xiaoqi so much that he took a step back. It was the master of the Tao mystic realm, formless world, the 10 absolute prodigy of the first chaotic assembly. Formless world looked even more dignified than before. Its aura was not inferior to Huang Zuentian's. Formless world sized up Chu Xiaoqi, making him extremely nervous. He had no choice but to hide behind Huang Zuentian. This child's foundation is average. It's only you, hard to predict his fate. It's because of right? Formless world said. The communication between Huang Zuentian and Chu Xiaoqi was isolated by the former. Other than a Tao creator, the other existences could not spy from afar. Huang Zuentian said, "Yes, he's my disciple. I plan to nurture him and leave him in your Tao mystic realm. You have no objections, right?" Formless world smiled. "Of course. I'll take care of him. There's no need for that. Let him grow up on his own. When he grows up, he will owe you a favor, and so will I." "Fellow Taoist, you must be joking. What favor can we owe each other?" Formless world smiled and disappeared. This was what he wanted to say, so he did not stay any longer to prevent Huang Zuentian from returning. After all, Huang Zuentian's primordial chaos was more suitable for cultivation than the Tao mystic realm. There was no need to let Chu Xiaoqi stay here. Chu Xiaoqi swallowed and asked carefully, "Who was that just now?" Huang Zuentian said indifferently, "You're not qualified to interact with him." "TCH, like my grandfather." Chu Xiaoqi curled her lips. "Oh, who's your grandfather?" Huang Zuentian asked curiously. "Someone I met when I was young. I don't know his identity either." Chu Xiaoqi didn't think too much and replied directly. With Huang Zuentian's cultivation level, he shouldn't lie to him. Besides, Hanju didn't ask him not to say anything about their interactions. At least, there was no such scene in Chu Xiaoqi's memories. In any case, more than 10,000 years had passed, and this experience was no longer important. "Then show me his appearance," Huang Zuentian instructed. Chu Xiaoqi waved his hand, and a figure shining with divine light appeared in front of him. He was stunned and cast another spell. No matter how he cast his spell, he could not show the face in his mind. This feeling was extremely strange, causing Chu Xiaoqi's blood to run cold. Huang Zuentian was stunned. It was really him. Huang Zuentian said in a low voice, "All right, from now on, don't tell anyone about your experience with this person." Just pretend that this grandfather never existed, understand? Chu Xiaoqi retracted his hand and nodded. He muttered in his heart. His grandfather did not seem simple. Even such an existence was so afraid. Chu Xiaoqi was about to ask Huang Zuantian if he knew his grandfather, but he waved his hand and brought him back to the immortal world. The two of them landed in a forest. Without waiting for Chu Xiaoqi to say anything, Huang Zuantian began to teach him a cultivation technique. Chu Xiaoqi's cultivation technique was too ordinary. Cultivating to the zenith heaven golden immortal realm was already the limit. Huang Zuantian prepared to teach Chu Xiaoqi his legacy. Since he was someone that master valued, he would teach him everything. Han Ju stood in the blank domain and witnessed Huang Zuantian's performance. Not bad. Huang Zuantian still did not lose his loyalty to him after becoming a primordial fiend celestial. It was good to let Chu Xiaoqi follow him. He had walked a heaven-defying path. If Chu Xiaoqi followed him, he might be able to learn a lot. Han Ju stared at Chu Xiaoqi and sighed. The two grandsons he had personally taken care of were not good people. One was primordial despair's reincarnation, and the other wanted to destroy everything. He wondered how their future relationship would be. Han Ju suddenly looked forward to it. It would be interesting even if they became opponents. As for Chen Ju, whom Chu Xiaoqi respected, Han Ju didn't care about him. Chen Ju was only one of his countless descendants. He was just lucky to receive the creation heavens chosen. It was nothing much. More descendants would obtain the creation heavens chosen in the future. Han Ju watched for a while before disappearing. On the other side, in the primordial hall, Han Huang opened his eyes and frowned. Why can't my primordial chaos condense the supreme rules? Han Huang muttered to himself in frustration. Only a world with rules was considered a world. Only a world with great Tao rules was considered a world. The same was true of the great Tao world. However, to reach the Tao creator realm, the great Tao world had to condense supreme rules. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1143 Undiscovered Place. Chapter 1143 Undiscovered Place. Ever since the great Tao immeasurable calamity ended, although Han Huang had obtained a huge opportunity, he discovered that it was very difficult for his cultivation level to increase, as if he had already reached his limit. He was a primordial fiend celestial. How could he have a limit? Could it be that the potential of those Tao creators was stronger than his? Impossible. Han Huang fell into deep thought. Could it be that he had killed too many people, causing the primordial chaos to be unable to transform? However, he had observed the other great Tao worlds. Other than the great Tao world of the Tao creator, the other great Tao worlds could not successfully condense the supreme rules. In other words, the existences at the perfected great Tao supreme realm were temporarily on the same starting line. From the embryonic great Tao world to the complete great Tao world, this process was extremely difficult. The Tao creators did not guide the great Tao supremes. Even if their own people asked, they would only answer. The path to becoming a Tao creator varied from person to person. How stable the great Tao world was depended on one's own creation. Just as Han Huang was feeling frustrated, footsteps came from the darkness beside him. A figure slowly walked over. Han Huang was not surprised. He didn't even turn around. Box and oval. C0M. This figure was completely black and had a human figure. A pair of red eyes with black pupils appeared on his face, looking sinister. It takes time to condense your great Tao world. How long did it take the chaos to evolve? How long has your primordial chaos been evolving? The red-eyed black shadow smiled with a mocking tone. Han Huang snorted. I know, but even if it takes time, you can at least sense the progress, right? The red-eyed black shadow said. There are a total of 5 Tao creators now. Your father is one of them. Why don't you ask him for guidance? Han Huang sighed. How can I have the face to look for him again? He was not Chu Xiaoqi. He was born to be strong. With his unparalleled talent, if he could not rely on his father, he would try his best not to. The red-eyed black shadow snorted. How pretentious. Your body was given by your parents and your father saved you many times. Do you really think you relied on yourself? You started from the beginning and completely relied on your father. You just don't dare to accept reality. Perhaps that's the reason why you can't succeed. Han Huang's expression instantly turned ugly, but he was not angry. The red-eyed black shadow continued to mock him. Now there are 3 primordial fiend celestials. You, primordial origin, and Huang Zuantian. Your potential is no longer unique. Put down your arrogance. So what if I let go of my arrogance? If Father could guide the path of a Tao creator, the hidden sect would have long produced a second Tao creator. It's the same for the other Tao creators. Perhaps they don't want anyone to reach the Tao creator realm, even if they're on their side. Because the Tao creator realm is supreme, there are very few of them. Han Huang was silent. The red-eyed black shadow did not say anything else, and retreated into the darkness. The hall was silent. Han Huang slowly stood up. His gaze darkened as he muttered, "Perhaps I should really look for Father." He disappeared into the hall. Several days later, Han Ju received Han Huang. Han Huang asked about the method to attain the Tao. Han Ju didn't say anything else, and directly preached the Tao, telling him his creation experience. Han Ju was naturally not stingy with his son. However, the Tao creator's method to attain the Tao was extremely difficult. It was useless to know how to build the great Tao world. After all, every great Tao world was different. If one wanted to attain the Tao, one had to rely on potential or epiphany. Han Ju relied on his potential to become a Tao creator, with the potential of the ultimate origin fiend celestial. It was not difficult. However, he couldn't tell Han Huang this directly. After a long time, when Han Ju finished speaking, Han Huang woke up. He hurriedly bowed to express his gratitude. The father and son did not exchange pleasantries. Han Huang left. Han Ju couldn't help but shake his head upon seeing Han Huang's excited expression. Will he hate me if he still fails? Han Ju had already seen Han Huang develop mental demons. This kid even created mental demons into clones, and often talked to them. This time, Han Huang came because the mental demon clone persuaded him. It was not impossible for father and son to fight. Han Ju looked at the future. Han Huang's future continued until he reached the Tao creator realm. Although he had always treated him as a target, he had never crossed the line with him. The future was endless. Han Ju retracted his gaze and continued cultivating. He suddenly felt that time passed very slowly, ever since the great Tao immeasurable calamity ended. Perhaps his cultivation level had increased too slowly, causing his cultivation passion to decrease greatly. No, he could not be numbed. Those Tao creators were so relaxed, causing them to be unable to improve. However, he couldn't cultivate blindly. The 9th chaos buried his head in cultivation, and gave Han Ju a chance to rise. The 9th chaos probably couldn't understand even until his death. He had only taken a nap. Why did he give Han Ju a chance? How did Han Ju create a Tao field that even a Tao creator couldn't enter in so little time? Han Ju needed to cultivate, but he couldn't cultivate too much. He looked at the corner where a ball of gray chi floated. It was the 9th chaos will. It was being enslaved by the ultimate origin heavenly prison. The disciples entering and leaving did not sense anything special about the gray chi. Han Liang was once curious about it, but he was chased away by Han Ju and never dared to approach it again. Han Liang was not afraid of anything but Han Ju. Perhaps it was his bloodline suppression. The ultimate origin fiend celestial's bloodline was stronger than his bloodline after all. Under the old tree, Han Liang opened his eyes and looked angrily at a man beside him. Was Han Ju's granddisciple Morong Chi. Didn't you agree to have the same cultivation level as me? Han Liang said angrily as he clenched his fists. Morong Chi smiled. Yes, I did suppress my cultivation, but the difference between bodies can't be suppressed. Han Liang turned his head away, looking like he would not listen. Morong Chi stood up and prepared to leave. Why are you leaving? I've never played it before. Forget it. You can't afford it. No, brother Morong, I was wrong. Han Liang hugged Morong Chi's right leg and said pitifully. Morong Chi had no choice but to sit back down. Han Liang was now the favorite son of the entire Tao field. Because of his temperament and body, everyone liked him. Brother Morong, can you tell me about the outside world? Don't you often wander outside? Han Liang asked curiously, and stopped the simulation trial. He did not like to be tortured either. Morong Chi did not hide anything. He talked about his experiences outside. Sometimes he was excited, sometimes he sighed. Han Liang widened his eyes and clenched his fists, exclaiming, "Han Liang, do you want to go out too?" Morongqi rubbed Han Liang's head and asked with a smile. Han Liang nodded. "Of course. I'm already tired of staying in the Dao field, but Grandpa doesn't let me out." Morongqi smiled. "Indeed, we shouldn't go out. Once we go out, it's very difficult to return. It's not only that you don't want to return, but your grandfather won't let you cultivate beside him anymore. The greatest opportunity in the world is your grandfather. You have to think about it." Han Liang tilted his head and fell into deep thought. Morongqi continued, "You have to find your cultivation goal. You can't just become stronger in general. Everyone has their own life. You have to find the true meaning of your life." Han Liang said in a low voice, "I want to go to a place that has never been discovered. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com." Chapter 1144 Misdirected Talent. Chapter 1144 Misdirected Talent. A place that has never been discovered. Morongqi couldn't help but laugh. Was there anything in the world that his grandfather did not know? "Your grandfather is the strongest," Han Liang said with a yearning expression. "I've been thinking about how high the sky is and how far the surroundings are. Brother Morong, I keep feeling that something is summoning me from afar." Morongqi smiled. "Then cultivate well. With your current cultivation level, it won't be long before you're eaten alive." "TCH, you only know how to scare me. How many people in the simulation trial are you unable to defeat? This is only our Dao field. Think about how many people are outside." "But I can't see those people in the Dao field. They must be outsiders." "You're quite smart." "Of course." The two of them chatted casually. Box and Oval. C0M Han Liang couldn't leave the Dao field without Hanju's approval. It was useless even if he begged Morongqi. After Morongqi left, other disciples accompanied Han Liang. He could be said to be doted on. They were both biological grandsons, but Chu Xiaoqi was not so lucky. Huang Zuantian left after passing down his legacy to Chu Xiaoqi, leaving him to wander alone. Under Huang Zuantian's instructions, Chu Xiaoqi resigned from the position of immortal god. This caused the divine clan to be dissatisfied. If the immortal gods wanted to retreat, what dignity would the divine clan have? Therefore, Chu Xiaoqi was hunted down. Chu Xiaoqi regretted it. He had a good impression of the divine clan, so he went back to say goodbye. If he had known earlier, he would have pretended to be dead and fled. In any case, the divine clan might not remember him. Chu Xiaoqi had been reborn after obtaining Huang Zuantian's inheritance. Ordinary immortals were not his match at all. Under the pursuit of the divine race, Chu Xiaoqi became famous until he met Chenju. Because Chu Xiaoqi was difficult to deal with, the divine clan had no choice but to send Chenju. Chu Xiaoqi had special feelings for Chenju before. Even if Chenju did not know him, he still felt very pressured when he blocked his way. Chu Xiaoqi surrender. Chenju wore the silver armor of the divine clan and had phoenix wings on his crown. His cloak fluttered in the air. Just his aura was enough to make people think of the words war god. Chu Xiaoqi's appearance was also outstanding, but he would always feel ashamed in front of Chenju. Chenju frowned. "On account that we are the same batch of immortals, I don't want to attack you. Surrender." He continued to approach Chu Xiaoqi. A strange black pattern suddenly appeared between Chu Xiaoqi's eyebrows. Calamity Life Controller. He had actually been given the Great Dao Providence Divine Authority by Huang Zuantian. Chu Xiaoqi planned to go all out as he faced the famous Chenju. Chu Xiaoqi's speed was extremely fast. Before Chenju could react, he attacked from behind him and waved his palm. This palm struck out thousands of stars and quickly expanded. The rapidly expanding stars collided with Chenju and sent him flying into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Chenju was caught off guard and fell to the ends of the world. These stars were all as big as mountains. They exploded the moment they hit Chenju. Chenju was unable to withstand it. This kid. Chenju was shocked and had no choice but to use his mystical power to dodge. Just as he appeared, another star collided with him, followed by countless stars making him dizzy. Chenju continued to move, but no matter how he moved, the stars chased after him. This was Chu Xiaoqi's special ability as a Calamity Life controller. Every Calamity Life controller would obtain their own special ability when they obtained the Great Tao Providence Divine Authority. It was equivalent to an innate mystical power. Chu Xiaoqi could already use his ability proficiently. He felt that it was very domineering and almost invincible. The outcome also proved it. Even the powerful Chenju was suppressed. These stars were made with his dermic powers. They were no different from true stars. After Huang Zuantian's guidance, Chu Xiaoqi and Chenju's cultivation levels were already very close, so his mystical power was enough to suppress the latter. I'm too strong. Chu Xiaoqi was excited. Huang Zuantian's image in his heart soared. The mystical power his master had taught him could even suppress Chenju. Chu Xiaoqi was satisfied and was not in a hurry to escape. He kept using his mystical powers and pressed Chenju to the ground. Soon, his divine armor shattered and he was covered in blood. He was in an extremely sorry state. Chenju was also extremely angry. These stars were too annoying. They were simply his counter, making him unable to counterattack. Chu Xiaoqi suddenly couldn't bear it. After all, when Chenju first found him, he did not directly attack. After thinking about it, Chu Xiaoqi retracted his hand and transformed into a beam of light that disappeared into the sky. However, Chenju rushed out of the ruins and chased after him again. In terms of speed, Chu Xiaoqi was far inferior to Chenju. After Chenju caught up, Chu Xiaoqi used his mystical power to suppress him again. Chu Xiaoqi panicked as the cycle repeated. Although Chenju could not defeat him, he could not kill him either. His dermic powers were about to be exhausted, but Chenju was still at his peak. Impossible. Was this fellow's dermic powers endless? Chu Xiaoqi roared in his heart as jealousy surged. Talent. He knew that the amount of dermic powers was not only related to cultivation techniques, but also potential. At the same realm, the dermic powers of a prodigy far exceeded ordinary potential. In the end, Chenju's divine spear pierced through the sky and space when Chu Xiaoqi's dermic powers were about to be exhausted. It pierced through Chu Xiaoqi, causing blood to burst out. Chu Xiaoqi fell and smashed into the sea below, startling thousands of feet of waves. Chu Xiaoqi's consciousness faded. He could vaguely see a figure crashing through the sea and swimming towards him. Damn it. I'm still too weak. Chu Xiaoqi sighed. If he couldn't even defeat Chenju, how could he jump out of the immortal world and admire the higher sky? He thought of his grandfather and Tangwan. Indignant. He was really indignant. Although he was unwilling to give up, Chu Xiaoqi had already reached his limit. He fell unconscious. In the Dao field, Han Ju opened his eyes and sighed faintly. Han Liang opened his eyes and looked at his grandfather curiously. Grandpa rarely sighed. He wanted to ask, but he was afraid of being scolded. Han Ju smiled and asked, "You have a brother who is training outside and has no one to help him. He's about to die. Do you think I should help him?" Han Liang widened his eyes and suddenly stood up. "Of course you have to help him. Grandpa, bring me along. If anyone dares to bully my brother, I'll tear them apart." "Hee hee, you want to go out?" "No way." "So be it, but Grandpa, you have to save him. If you don't save him, you definitely won't save me if anything happens to me in the future." Han Liang curled his lips and pretended to be aggrieved. Han Ju smiled. "Aren't you afraid that he's stronger than you?" Han Liang scratched his head. "So what if he's stronger than me? Many people in the hidden sect are stronger than me." Han Ju sensed that he was telling the truth and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was this kid's talent misdirected? Wasn't he born with the instinct to destroy everything? Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1145 Fate. Chapter 1145 Fate. Grandpa, hurry up. Don't miss the opportunity. Han Liang came to Han Ju's side and shook his arm. He looked like a spoiled child, not like a little boy, but more like a girl. Han Ju smiled and said, "He was already saved while we were talking." Han Liang's eyes widened. "Who saved him?" "Of course it was me." "Wow, Grandpa, you didn't move just now. Could it be that you have a clone?" "Grandpa can save him with a thought." "Wow!" Han Liang shouted. It had to be said that this performance made Han Ju very comfortable. This kid was very sensible. Han Ju pulled Han Liang into his arms and rubbed his head. He smiled and said, "You have many siblings, but most of them are far younger than you. They might not be that close to you, but in my eyes, your potential is the best. In the future, you have to protect your siblings and juniors, understand?" Han Liang was overjoyed. His grandfather's praise was higher than any achievement. Box and oval. C0M. He nodded enthusiastically and patted his chest, promising. Han Ju planned to continue teaching the sect in the future and let Han Liang become the guardian of the Han family. This kid's potential was comparable to the primordial fiend celestial. He was slightly stronger than a single creation heavens chosen. So far, Han Liang's performance was still quite satisfactory. Nurturing powerful descendants was what Han Ju was most interested in now, after becoming invincible. Primordial Hall. Han Huang opened his eyes and frowned. He muttered, "Why doesn't it work?" The red-eyed black shadow walked out of the darkness and smiled. "This means that your father doesn't want to guide you at all. Like the other Dao creators, they don't want a new Dao creator to appear. This is also the reason why your father hid in the Dao field after attaining the Dao." Han Huang snorted. "My father isn't like this. That means that your father's method cannot be used again. Everyone has their own path. Perhaps your limit is the great Dao Supreme Realm. Don't think that the primordial fiend celestial is unparalleled in the world. Don't forget, the chaos replaced the primordial chaos. The primordial chaos potential should be weaker than the chaos. However, you use all the living beings in the chaos as your standard. The true standard is the ninth chaos who created the chaos, the once strongest Dao creator." The red-eyed black shadow's words made Han Huang silent and fall into self-doubt. He thought of the power he had relied on previously. It was his father's dermic powers. His primordial fiend celestial bloodline was also given to him by his father. Was there a possibility? Actually, he was not a primordial fiend celestial at all. Furthermore, his mother couldn't give birth to him. Instead, his father sacrificed his bloodline to cause his birth. So, I can't become a Dao creator because I'm not a true primordial fiend celestial. Or rather, the primordial fiend celestial can't reach the Dao creator realm at all. Father broke through a higher bloodline restriction. Han Huang was enlightened and felt relieved. The red-eyed black shadow saw his expression and smiled like a crescent moon before disappearing into the darkness. Han Huang relaxed a lot after he put down the burden of the primordial fiend celestial. He stood up and smiled. "I'm confused. How can I create my own great Dao world if I don't see the various forms of all living beings? Perhaps my bias is too deep. That's why I can't create my own great Dao world." He stepped forward and walked towards the door. "Primordial chaos. What is the primordial chaos?" Han Huang's voice became softer and softer as his figure walked further and further away. The blue sky and blue sea were cloudless. Cliff after cliff cut through the endless sea. Countless waves slapped the mountain wall, stirring up countless white waves. Chu Xiaoqi and Chen Ju sat at the edge of the cliff. Chu Xiaoqi stretched lazily and looked at Chen Ju beside him. He smiled and said, I didn't expect this. Chen Ju changed into a green robe and looked at the sky calmly. The sea breeze blew his hair, making him look extremely carefree. Even Chu Xiaoqi was a little jealous. In terms of handsomeness, this man was second only to his grandfather. "Why did you save me? Why did you betray the divine clan with me?" Chu Xiaoqi asked curiously. He thought that he was doomed. Unexpectedly, when he opened his eyes, he discovered that he was not dead. Chen Ju had saved him, and even said that he would betray the immortals with him. Chen Ju said calmly, "I don't have a good impression of the immortal gods to begin with. I just treated them as a springboard. As for you, you're the stupidest person I've ever seen. Clearly, no immortal god remembers you, but you still came back to tell them you were leaving. You're simply a fool. However, your strength is not bad. I see you in a different light." Chu Xiaoqi curled his lips. How true. However, Chen Ju was indeed powerful. In any case, Chu Xiaoqi was convinced. He asked curiously, "Then what do you plan to do next? What are your plans?" "Of course, I'm gonna wander the world." "Me too. So you really want to follow me? The fact that you dare to return means that you are responsible. You dare to face the pursuit of the immortal gods and not surrender. Such spirit is qualified to follow me. Follow you? TCH, you should be the one following me. The two of them began to bicker. The two of them looked at each other, but their lips were actually curled up. Chu Xiaoqi was very happy. It had been a long time since he had met a companion who was willing to wander the world with him. Chen Ju was also in a good mood. He felt that he had company. Actually, he had chosen Chu Xiaoqi because in the previous battle, Chu Xiaoqi had no intention of killing him. In the first half of the battle, he had been beaten. He could sense that Chu Xiaoqi had an even stronger power that had yet to erupt. It was not only Chu Xiaoqi. Chen Ju couldn't bear to kill him either. This feeling was ridiculous. In fact, from the moment the two of them met, Chen Ju had a deep impression of Chu Xiaoqi. Chu Xiaoqi was secretly observing him, and so was he. It was precisely because of this that he especially accepted the mission to hunt him down. Somehow, the two of them seemed to be fated. For the time being, Chen Ju could not think that this fate might be a trap, because he and Chu Xiaoqi had no karma in the past. Chen Ju, what's your cultivation goal? You first. I want to see the scenery of the world. I want to go to places I've never been, and see the demeanor of a mighty figure I've never seen. How empty. My goal is to become stronger. To constantly become stronger, and eventually become the strongest. Chen Ju curled his lips and talked about his goal in high spirits. Chu Xiaoqi regained his chatterbox personality and bragged nonstop. Far away in the third Dao field, Han Ju slowly smiled. He was cultivating, and so was Han Liang. No one noticed that the corners of his mouth were lifted. In the eyes of invincible people, fate in this world was karma. The reason why he wanted to matchmake Chu Xiaoqi and Chen Ju was because of Fang Liang and Ji Xianxin. Some friendships could last a long time. Han Ju could see through Chen Ju's personality at a glance. It was worth handing Chu Xiaoqi over to him. Chu Xiaoqi could give his back to Chen Ju. Hooking up with Chu Xiaoqi was equivalent to having Han Huang as a backing. Han Huang was a future Dao creator. Such a background was definitely worth giving up everything. Although Chen Ju had the heaven's chosen creation, he would have many such descendants in the future. The difference in seniority was too great. Furthermore, Han Ju was prepared to accumulate a large number of heaven's chosen creation attempts. Thank you for reading on MyBox Novel. Com. Chapter 1146 Consciousnessless Ambition, Unknown Power. Chapter 1146 Consciousnessless Ambition, Unknown Power. 10,000 years passed. Han Ju opened his eyes and looked at Chu Xiaoqi. Ever since he helped Chu Xiaoqi, he did not dare to enter seclusion for too long, afraid that if he was not careful, Chu Xiaoqi would be gone. Chu Xiaoqi and Chen Ju had already made a name for themselves in the Dao mystic realm in the past 10,000 years. They were legendary figures that the divine clan of the immortal world had to look up to. In Han Ju's eyes, 10,000 years was like a day. It was very short, but in the eyes of cultivators, 10,000 years was an era. From the looks of it, Chu Xiaoqi and Chen Ju had already established themselves. Unless they encountered existences that far exceeded their cultivation realm, it was very difficult for them to die. Behind Chu Xiaoqi was Huang Zuantian, and behind Chen Ju were Han Yanjin, and Han Ling. Han Ju smiled, and felt that he was too childish. He looked at Han Liang. This kid was cultivating in the Dao field, and following Han Ju. He had already become a primordial chaos sage. Seeming to sense his gaze, Han Liang opened his eyes. He immediately rubbed his hands, and chuckled upon seeing him smiling. Grandpa, you're finally awake. When are you letting me out? I'm already a sage. I'm strong enough. Han Ju smiled. It's not enough. Your birth destined that your opponent will be stronger than the opponents others encounter. Understand? Box novel. C0M. Han Liang curled his lips. I know that our hidden sect and the Han family are very powerful. But Uncle Master Long Hao said that no one dares to provoke us. Don't listen to him. He almost died outside. Han Ju snorted and recounted Long Hao's experience in the heavenly Dao immeasurable calamity. Han Liang was shocked again. He did not expect the seemingly gentle Long Hao to be so rebellious. Han Ju said meaningfully, "This is a path of failure. You have to take it as a warning." I used to think highly of him. Now I think highly of you the most. Han Liang, you were born extraordinary and are doted on by all. Your starting point is higher than all living beings. Your heart has to calm down. Cultivation is not only cultivation, but also heart tempering. Han Liang seemed to understand. He had too little experience. Some things sounded clear, but it was very difficult to understand. Then when can I go out? Han Liang asked. At least become a great Tao sage. Great Tao sage. Han Liang's face turned bitter. Great Tao sage. It looked like he was only separated by the freedom realm, but it was actually extremely far. After attaining the Tao, he felt that it was very difficult to break through a minor realm. Han Ju ignored this kid and started to check his emails. He could observe the entire blank domain. He was used to reading emails. This was one but of his few joys. Han Liang struggled for a while before continuing to cultivate. The mysterious domain was dark, and one could not even see their fingers. A head that emitted a faint light was advancing. It was the chaotic consciousness. The 8 eyes on his face looked in different directions. After an unknown period of time, the chaotic consciousness finally stopped. A crimson egg was in front of him. Its surface was wrapped in countless blood vessels. It was ghastly and terrifying. A dragon-like figure swam inside the huge egg. Occasionally, it would change its figure and emit an ancient aura. You're finally here, an ancient voice sounded. The chaotic consciousness asked. What do you plan to do? I can feel that my main body's will is being controlled by him. Sooner or later, my main body will become his slave. The chaotic consciousness was silent. He was taking a huge risk by coming here. Consciousnessless, there's still a chance. He might have surpassed the Tao Creator realm and called himself the Lord, but he has yet to dominate everything. There are too many unknowns in the blank domain. I've long expected this day, so I severed the mental demon and split it into 2. I asked you to come this time to nurture an existence that surpasses the Tao Creator realm. If this existence perishes with all living beings in the blank domain, we can reconstruct everything. An ancient voice sounded with an indifferent tone. The chaotic consciousness asked, do we really have a chance of winning? Are you willing to stop here? You don't want to surpass the Tao Creator realm anymore? The chaotic consciousness fell silent again. He couldn't refute the ancient voice. All Tao creators had ambitions stronger than all living beings. The chaotic consciousness ambition was greater than the other 3 Tao creators. This was also the reason why he still dared to come after Hanju became invincible. Now that the formless transcendent deity and the yin-yang purity nirvana deity had already submitted to Hanju, the remaining Shurtion's immeasurable destruction venerable was useless. The chaotic consciousness asked, how long will that take? Just wait. It won't take longer than you becoming a Tao creator. The endless era looks bright, but it's actually the prelude to destruction. Although he surpasses the Tao creator realm, he doesn't understand the blank domain or how the primordial chaos destroyed it. As for me, I created the chaos. The figure in the huge egg suddenly stopped and disappeared. The light of the huge egg converged until it was hidden in the darkness. Next, you have to nurture as many talented people as possible and strengthen your force. The stronger the better. The chaotic consciousness left. Ultimate Origin World. The Ultimate Origin World had stopped expanding ever since the Endless Era's creation. After fusing with the Purity Great Tao World, it was definitely the largest world in the blank domain. The Ultimate Origin World was extremely far from the center of the Endless Era. Very few living beings were involved in the Ultimate Origin World, but its legend had already spread in the center of the Endless Era. The Ultimate Origin World's interior could be said to be extremely exciting. As the era changed, many experts appeared. Han Ling had discovered the Ultimate Origin World from the Netherworld a long time ago, and even nurtured the Ultimate Origin cultivation potential, which was Han Ziyuan of the 10 Divine Stars. After that, Han Ling and Han Yunjin joined forces and sent many disciples of the Creation Emperor Court and Han descendants into the Ultimate Origin World to develop. They discovered that the spirit chi in the Ultimate Origin World far exceeded the various worlds and had 8 supreme rules. This was definitely the most impressive world. They naturally thought of Hanju, This was also the reason why they dared to be at ease. Hanju didn't reveal the ultimate origin world, and they didn't ask further. They had a tacit understanding. At that moment, a demon was born in the ultimate origin world. It wreaked havoc in billions of worlds, and looked like it was about to stir up a calamity. Inside a palace, more than 1,000 figures gathered here. They were the great Dao Fiend Celestials born in the ultimate origin world. Their cultivation levels had at least reached the great Dao Sage realm. There were more than 30 great Dao Supremes among them. Such a foundation was very powerful. The leader was the Life Fiend Celestial. It was one of the few existences that had received Hanju's personal guidance. It was also the existence with the highest status in the ultimate origin world, and was called the Master of the Gods. The Life Fiend Celestial scanned the area and asked, "This demon has unprecedented power. What do you think?" The great Dao Fiend Celestials were all silent. No one spoke. That demon was indeed powerful. Many great Dao Fiend Celestials had already returned in failure. Unless several great Dao Supremes joined forces, they could not defeat it. After being subdued, this demon could not be destroyed, and was truly undying and indestructible. Most importantly, during the period of suppression, this demon was still becoming stronger, making them feel uneasy and embarrassed. Thank you for reading on myboxnovel.com. Chapter 1147 Cultivation Potential. Chapter 1147 Cultivation Potential Threshold. The silent hall was extremely oppressive. The Life Fiend Celestial frowned, his eyes filled with displeasure. This demon's power is indeed extraordinary. Why don't you ask the heavens? A great Dao Fiend Celestial asked. The other great Dao Fiend Celestials agreed, as if they had opened a conversation box. The hall instantly entered a noisy state. Yes, since we don't know, we'll ask the heavens. The Divine Lord of the Nether race seems to be able to contact the heavens. The Nether race is just trash. This demon grew up under their noses. Don't say that. The great Dao Fiend Celestial and the Nether race are both favored children of the heavens. They should be as close as brothers. The Life Fiend Celestial's brows did not relax at their words. He felt that this was nonsense. If he could, he would have found it long ago. Box and Oval. C0M. At this moment, an old man said, "I have a way to send this demon into the cycle of reincarnation, and use it to slow his growth speed and will." Most of the great Dao Fiend Celestials agreed with the old man's proposal. The Life Fiend Celestial felt that it made sense and agreed. The great Dao Fiend Celestials heaved a sigh of relief. At least they had a way. They really did not want to face that demon anymore. The calamity in the ultimate origin world didn't attract Hanju's attention. His transcendent rule was an alarm. If there was really a danger that endangered the ultimate origin world, the transcendent rule would remind him. The endless era was already getting further and further away from the creation time. Peace could not last forever. The experts' ambitions of all sides also began to grow, especially the perfected great Dao Supremes of the older generation. After so many years, they couldn't find a way to become Dao creators, and began to have other thoughts. Some factions with blood feuds began to friction, and conflict erupted. The battle of the great world began. 1,000,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Hanju opened his eyes and looked at Chu Xiaoqi first. 1,000,000 years was enough for Chu Xiaoqi to transform and become independent. As the battle of the great world began, the Dao mystic realm also fell into a storm. The small worlds came from different factions. Although they were gathered together, the control of the old factions was still very strong. Chu Xiaoqi and Chenju had experienced countless life and death situations. Although they kept growing, they still could not achieve much in the Dao mystic realm. It was mainly because they did not have any forces. Hanju retracted his gaze and looked at Han Liang. This kid sat in front of him. His body was golden like a golden statue. It seemed that Han Liang had already begun to study his body. His bloodline potential was not inferior to the primordial Fiend Celestial. It was the first brand new peak bloodline in the endless era. Hanju was still looking forward to it. Hanju said, "Come in." Han Liang opened his eyes and turned around. He saw Han Ling walking into the temple and removing her divine light to reveal her true appearance. Han Liang chuckled. Fourth aunt, long time no see. Han Ling smiled at him and walked in front of Han Ju, bowing respectfully. Han Ju sighed in his heart. After going out to train, the father and daughter were no longer as close as before. They were more like master and disciple. It was not only Han Ling. All the children and descendants who went out were the same. Therefore, once Han Ju wanted to nurture someone, he would not let him leave easily. Once he left, it would be very difficult for their relationship to recover. After his children went out to train, and knew how tall and strong Han Ju was, they naturally felt reverence for him, let alone after not seeing him for a long time. Han Ju had 5 children and countless descendants. Family ties might not be important to him. At least his children thought so. Father, I'm here for the ultimate origin world, Han Ling said, making Han Liang find it strange. What was the ultimate origin world? Han Ju didn't say anything, and Han Ling continued. The geniuses sent by the Creation Emperor Court to the ultimate origin world had all transformed into ultimate origin life forms. Now in the ultimate origin world, all living beings were in a panic, as if the great Tao immeasurable calamity of the chaos had arrived. That evil devil's power is really strange. He can't be killed, and can still become infinitely stronger. Now we can't suppress him unless 20 great Tao Supremes join forces. Han Ling frowned. Great Tao Supreme? Han Liang was even more curious, as if ants were crawling in his heart. Han Ju smiled faintly. Why are you so concerned about my ultimate origin world? Is a mere junior worth you coming to me personally? That's not your style. Han Ling said helplessly. I really can't hide it from you, father. That power made me fantasize. There are no new Tao creators in the current endless era. I used to think that the rules of the great Tao world were not good. But after seeing that evil devil, I had another opinion. Does the Tao creator realm also have to look at potential? Han Ju smiled and didn't reply. Han Ling heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that her guess was right. She began to feel excited. At least she had grasped the true secret of becoming a Tao creator. Potential. Why couldn't so many perfected great Tao Supremes become Tao creators? Apart from the great Tao world itself, it was also related to potential. Otherwise, how could there be so few Tao creators since ancient times? Han Ju maintained a smile as he stared at Han Ling. The evil devil of the endless era indeed had top-notch potential. It had the potential to become a Tao creator. It was precisely because its potential was too outstanding that it attracted the covetous eyes of others. After the conflict erupted, they kept fighting, causing it to lose itself in strength and finally become an evil devil in the eyes of all living beings. Actually, that fellow was not an evil devil. He was the strongest potential born in the ultimate origin world. His future achievements were that of a Tao creator. Therefore, the great Tao Supremes could not see through his future because they could not. They thought that he was a calamity. However, it was probably not that simple for Han Ling to target him. Han Ju asked, "What do you want to do?" Han Ling said, "I'm just curious. How far is my potential from becoming a Tao creator?" Tao creator? Han Liang was even more confused. What was this? Han Ju said, "All you need is time." Han Huang, Han Ling, and Han Liang all had the potential to become Tao creators, and also had great creations. On the other hand, the other children were much inferior. Han Ling asked, "What do you think of that evil devil?" Han Ju said, "I don't care." Han Ling nodded. The father and daughter exchanged a few more pleasantries before Han Ling bid farewell. Han Ju sighed faintly after she left. The human heart is unfathomable, and the sage heart is even more unfathomable. Han Liang scratched his head and asked, "What do you mean?" "Nothing. Will you change in the future?" "Yes, I'll become stronger in the future." Hee hee. Silly kid. Hee hee. Han Liang thought that his grandfather was praising him, and smiled even more foolishly. Han Ju shook his head. He had already seen through Han Ling's ambitions. Ever since the great Tao immeasurable calamity ended, Han Ling felt that her emperor soldiers were not strong enough. She had a bold thought and even succeeded. She prepared to refine living spirits into emperor soldiers. The dharmic powers and potential of the emperor soldiers would become part of her. Now, she had targeted the evil devil of the ultimate origin world. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1148 Creator Lord's Pity. Chapter 1148 Creator Lord's Pity. In order to become a Tao creator, perfected great Tao supreme existences began to think of all ways. Many existences like Han Ling wanted to steal potential. Hanju didn't blame Han Ling for her thoughts. The path of cultivation was a selfish path. The strong preyed on the weak. There was nothing to say. Moreover, that evil devil was not so easy to deal with. Han Ling and the evil devil could be each other's whetstones. All these years, Han Huang had walked around in the blank domain. In Hanju's emails, Han Huang discovered many new maps. He shed the ruthlessness of the primordial fiend celestial and became more like an expert who had attained the Tao, making Hanju satisfied. At this rate, Han Huang could really become the first primordial fiend celestial in the endless era. Hanju looked at the clone sent to explore the origin space-time. Ever since something happened to Ji Xianxian, he had asked one of his clones to find him. Finding Ji Xianxian was not the most important thing. It was mainly to explore the origin space-time. The origin space-time was indeed impressive. Based on the rules of the blank domain, generally speaking, space-time could be tampered with or even destroyed by cultivators. However, the origin space-time could not. It was an independent existence. The origin space-time determined the development of the rules of the blank domain, not the past and future of living beings. Hanju's ultimate origin world had already condensed 9 supreme rules. Only a Tao creator could see the 9th supreme rule. Now, he planned to use the origin space-time to create the 10th supreme rule. The more rules there were, the stronger the ultimate origin world became. There were far fewer than 3,000 great Tao back when the 9th chaos created the chaos. It was only because he kept becoming stronger that he formed 3,000 great Tao. In the future, Hanju would have more supreme rules. It was not impossible to reach 3,000. Chu Xiaoqi and Chenju had already stabilized themselves. Hanju planned to return to his previous seclusion state. He was still the person who kept wanting to become stronger. Hanju slowly closed his eyes. 10 million years had passed when he opened his eyes again. He was already 580 million years old. 10 million years was also a long time for the endless era. Han Liang had already become a great Tao sage, and was not at the early stage. Because Hanju didn't open his eyes, he shouldn't disturb him rashly. He had been waiting for this moment. Not long after Hanju opened his eyes, he immediately woke up from his cultivation. Hanju said before he could speak, "You can go out." "Yay!" Han Liang jumped up excitedly like a child. He flattered him for a while before leaving the Taoist temple in a hurry. Hanju smiled and looked at the 9th chaos will. He didn't know when he could successfully enslave it. He started checking his emails. Your son Han Huang was attacked by your son Han Tua. Your disciple Tao Sovereign was attacked by the Void Divine Clan, X8928723330. Your disciple Zhao Xianyuan. Your grand-disciple Feng Liang has comprehended the origin space-time. His cultivation has increased. Your grandson Chu Xiaoqi was attacked by a great Tao divine spirit and was severely injured. Your daughter Han Ling has entered the ultimate origin world. Your grandson Han Liang has awakened the power of his bloodline. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend, the formless transcendent deity, has comprehended a trace of the basic rules of the blank domain. His cultivation has increased. Your good friend evil heavenly emperor fell into a blank crack and into the anti-magic domain. His circle of friends had been very lively in the past 10 million years. More battles also ensued. Some of Hanju's disciples and children also began to fight with each other. He was not angry about this. Instead, he watched with relish. Hanju's mentality had been changing after becoming a creator lord. What he cared about in the past was not so much now, because he had the ability to protect and reconstruct everything. He would find it boring if the world in his eyes remained the same. He had no reason to stop the juniors from fighting. The higher one's cultivation realm was, the smaller their circle would be. The benefits they could obtain would also decrease. Fighting was naturally inevitable. Who did not want to become a Tao creator? Hanju suddenly had an idea. He immediately came to the formless transcendent deity's palace. The formless transcendent deity had created a separate world above the center of the blank domain, symbolizing his status. The formless transcendent deity seemed to sense something and opened his eyes. Seeing that it was Hanju, he immediately bowed respectfully and lowered his posture. He knew that everything he had now was given to him by Hanju. Hanju didn't imprison him in the ultimate origin heavenly prison, because he was rewarding him for taking sides back then. I have a great Tao Providence divine authority here that comes from the ultimate origin world. You can gather the great Tao Supremes and give them a chance. I've already thrown this divine authority into the lower realm. As for where it is, let them find it, Hanju said. The formless transcendent deity couldn't help but look up. Can they become a Tao creator? Perhaps. Understood. Hanju sat down and started to preach the Tao to the formless transcendent deity. After becoming a Tao creator, the formless transcendent deity had not listened to the Tao for a long time because the Tao of others was useless to him. But Hanju was the creator lord. After an unknown period of time, the formless transcendent deity woke up. Hanju was no longer in the hall. He sighed. As expected of a creator lord, he immediately summoned all the great Tao Supremes and Tao creators of the endless era. 100 years later, all the great Tao Supremes gathered in the hall. The chaotic consciousness, the yin-yang purity nirvana deity, and Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable also came. The great Tao Supremes of the ultimate origin world were also present. The current ultimate origin world was no longer isolated from the world. The formless transcendent deity said, "The current karma is given to me by the Lord. It can be considered an opportunity for you to become a Tao creator. It's the great Tao Providence divine authority created by the Lord. It's already in the lower realm. As for where it is, I don't know." The hall exploded. Even the chaotic consciousness, Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable, and the yin-yang purity nirvana deity were quite shocked. They didn't expect Hanju to take out the power of a supreme rule to reward all living beings. Han Huang, Han Tua, Han Ling, Han Qinger, and the descendants of the Han family were also excited. Soon, all the mighty figures present realized a problem. The calamity was coming. In order to become a Tao creator, they would definitely fight until their heads bled. Even if they knew that it would cause a calamity, they had no choice but to enter it. May I ask, great deity, what form is the great Tao Providence divine authority? Dijuan, who had survived the chaotic era, asked curiously. Pangu, Hongjun, the 12 ancestral magi, ancestor Shitian, and the other ancient existences of the heavenly Tao were also waiting expectantly. The formless transcendent deity replied, "I don't know. I can only tell you that this opportunity indeed exists. This is a chance given by the Lord as his pity to all living beings. However, it's definitely not that simple to become a Tao creator. Even if you obtain this great Tao Providence divine authority, you still need to comprehend it well. Don't be anxious for quick success. We Tao creators have experienced countless eras before transcending the great Tao." Mighty figures agreed with him. But even more mighty figures had already begun to think about where the great Tao Providence divine authority would be. Chapter 1149 Too late. Chapter 1149 Too late. The door to the transcendent divine hall opened and mighty figures flew out. Nearly half of the mighty figures quickly used their mystical powers and fled out of the sea of clouds. The remaining mighty figures began to interact. Han Tua, Han Huang, Han Ling, Han Qinger, Han Yi, Han Yao, Han Bahen, Tian, and the others gathered and left together. Tian smiled. "Why don't the Creator Lord directly reward you with this great Tao Providence divine authority?" Han Tua shook his head. "Father is already the Lord. All living beings are his children. What's the point of bias?" The others nodded. They had their own living beings ever since they established their great Tao world. Their mentality was also changing, so they could understand Hanju's thoughts. If he really favored them by blood and had many children, who should he favor? They began to discuss where Hanju would throw the great Tao Providence divine authority. Long Hao suddenly mentioned, "Could it be in the heavenly Tao?" The others' eyes lit up. It was impossible for this great Tao Providence divine authority to be in the ultimate origin world. Other than the ultimate origin world, only the heavenly Tao had a high possibility. They immediately took action. In the third Tao field, Hanju and Xing Hongxian were chatting in the Taoist temple. Tangwan, that girl hasn't mentioned Xiaoqi for a long time. Xing Hongxian shook her head in pity. Hanju smiled. Perhaps she's hiding it in her heart. You can let her go. Xing Hongxian spread her hands and said, my clone has long given her freedom, but she doesn't want to leave. She still wants to cultivate with my clone. Tang Wan was not a hidden sect disciple, so she naturally could not enter the Tao field. Therefore, Xing Hongxian asked her clone to teach Tang Wan. This lasted for 10 million years. Then let her go to the Tao mystic realm. Alright, I quite like this girl. I'll send my clone to help her if she encounters danger. Is that okay? Up to you. When have I ever restricted you? I thought you would set some rules. There's no need. Hanju smiled. He indeed didn't ask for anything from the endless era. The one who set the rules was the formless transcendent deity. He was happy to do this. The great deity who had once claimed to transcend everything and not be affected by karma, was now a rule maker, and controlled all living beings. The difference was really great. The two of them talked about Han Huang next. Xing Hongxian sighed. This kid seems to have changed recently. He traveled the heavens, and accumulated a lot of merit. He seems to be clearing his reputation. Hanju smiled. People will always change. Some will become bad, and naturally, some will also become good. In fact, everyone will change between good and bad. It's just defined by their level and standpoint. Huang only let go of his arrogance. In the past, he treated all living beings as ants. Now, he truly realizes that the difference in bloodline only affects cultivation. To the essence of living beings, there's no difference. Xing Hongxian fell into deep thought. She had also indulged ever since she obtained Hanju's invincible power. However, because it was not her own power, she was not too fearless. However, she admitted that she was indeed very arrogant in that period of time. She couldn't help but look at Hanju. Even if her husband was invincible, he didn't wreak havoc on all living beings. Instead, he maintained his original intention and stayed away from the mortal world. Thinking of this, Xing Hongxian was filled with admiration for him, as expected of the man she liked. Husband, do you have any thoughts of finding a new lover? Do you want me to help you? Xing Hongxian giggled. Hanju shook his head and laughed. Aren't you afraid of losing favor? I'm not afraid. Besides, it's useless even if I'm afraid. I might as well continue to please you. Xing Hongxian shrugged indifferently. The smartest thing about her was that she never interfered with Hanju's decisions. She also maintained a good relationship with his other women. She was the gel that bound them together. She knew very well that the difference between her and Hanju was huge. It was impossible for her to restrain him. Could it be that she was like a mortal woman, and insisted that Hanju only had her? What if he was unwilling? Could she go look for other men? In that case, she would have long floated in the cycle of reincarnation for countless generations. Hanju smiled. There's no need. Do you think the desires of the mortal world can still control me? This was the truth. Unless he was touched, it was very difficult for Hanju to like women because of his instincts. The love between men and women was no longer that important in his eyes. It was not as good as the joy brought by cultivation. As for being touched, with Hanju's strength, it was almost impossible for other women to touch him. The two of them chatted for a while more before Hanju stood up and left. After interacting with the other women for a period of time, he returned to his Taoist temple. He did not enter cultivation immediately. Instead, he observed the blank domain and looked at Han Liang. After Han Liang left the third Tao field, he first went to join Long Hao's dragon court. Long Hao was pleasantly surprised by his arrival. For the next period of time, Han Liang would probably have to stay in the dragon court. It was also a good thing to have someone guide him. To Long Hao, Han Liang's potential was extremely outstanding. Putting aside their relationship as fellow disciples, he had to rope him in. Hanju closed his eyes after watching for a while. Cultivation began. Another 10 million years passed. Hanju opened his eyes. His cultivation level had increased a little, but overall, he had improved very little. Who knew how long it would take for him to break through? However, the improvement of the Creator Lord was also something that all living beings needed to spend countless years to accumulate. Han Ju was really not used to not seeing Han Liang when he opened his eyes. Han Ju felt that time had passed a little slowly ever since he interacted with his two grandsons. These tens of millions of years surpassed the hundreds of millions of years of memories. A disciple was waiting outside the Taoist temple. Morongqi. Han Ju let him in. After entering the temple, Morongqi first bowed, and then went straight to the point. Grandmaster Fong Liang is missing. Do you know where he is? The Morongqi and Fong Liang were disciples of the same generation, and had always been best brothers. At least, Morongqi thought so. Han Ju said. He went to the origin spacetime to find a disciple who severed karma. Origin spacetime? Morongqi was stunned. Ignore him. With your strength, you'll be doomed if you go. Furthermore, he's not in danger for the time being, Han Ju said softly. Morongqi nodded. Other than that, there's one more thing. We chaotic fiend celestials have recently broken up, and each of us has established a force. I'm afraid this matter, Han Ju said. Let nature take its course. In the past, I nurtured you because I needed you to fight for me. Unfortunately, this opportunity didn't arrive. Now, I don't need you anymore. You can work hard for yourselves. Morongqi felt ashamed. They seemed to have never helped Han Ju since the beginning. Instead, Han Ju had saved them time and time again. If not for him, they wouldn't be where they were today. Morongqi began to kowtow in shame. Han Ju smiled. Morongqi, I've always thought highly of you. Since they're fighting, you have to fight too. So what if you're a fellow disciple? I won't interfere as long as you fight openly. I hope that you can become a Tao creator one day. Morongqi looked up. He was so excited that his arms trembled. He felt like his entire body was on fire. Chapter 1150 Great Tao Lake, 600 million years old. Chapter 1150 Great Tao Lake. 600 million years old. Morongqi began to create his own force after he left. From Han Ju's words, he realized that an unprecedented era of competition was about to arrive. It would be more dazzling than any previous era because since ancient times, no era had had so many great Tao Supremes. Han Ju quickly entered cultivation again. Chaos would ensue in the endless era, since he released the great Tao Providence Divine Authority. In the chaos, the eternal prodigy would appear, and a new Tao creator would be born in advance. Han Ju didn't deduce who would obtain this great Tao Providence Divine Authority. He also wanted to leave himself some suspense. After tens of millions of years of development, the Tao mystic realm developed rapidly. It was extremely vast, and was no longer inferior to the current heavenly Tao. Formless world obtained the formless transcendent deities, help and invested a lot of resources into the Tao mystic realm, attracting more and more cultivators. In a small world, the mountains undulated like the back of an ancient ferocious beast. It was vast and imposing. Chu Xiaoqi and Chen Ju sat side by the cliff, healing their injuries. Chu Xiaoqi suddenly opened his eyes and cursed, "Damn it. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. I have to kill him." Chen Ju did not even open his eyes. The other party is a great Tao sage, and controls a major force. He has more than 1,000 Freedom Realm cultivators under him. It's impossible for us to kill him. So what if he's a great Tao sage? Is he invincible? So far, yes. Wait for me to call my master. You don't even know who your master is. How can you call him? Chen Ju opened his eyes and said in a strange tone. Chu Xiaoqi would brag every time they encountered danger. At first, Chen Ju believed it and even looked forward to it, but now he no longer believed it. Chu Xiaoqi still wanted to quibble. Suddenly, the world shook and mountains ran. The two of them were attracted by the horizon, and saw a majestic figure walk past the end of the horizon. The figure was like someone from beyond the heavens. It was 10 million kilometers away. From the horizon to the top of the sea of clouds, only his waist was revealed. It was difficult to see his true appearance. The two of them were already at the Freedom Realm. Their gazes passed through the small world, and saw the huge shadow's true body. It was a mysterious man in sinister black armor. He had 3 heads and 6 arms and a pair of wings on his back. He was like an azure fiend celestial patrolling his territory. They shivered as they felt his terrifying aura. They immediately hid their auras, afraid that they would be discovered. After a long while, the black-armored man left their vision, and Chu Xiaoqi heaved a sigh of relief. Chunju frowned and muttered, "What a powerful aura! To make freedom so afraid, could it be a great Dao sage? He seems to be looking for something." Chu Xiaoqi crossed her arms and thought, "It's strange. We've encountered many great Dao sages recently. Could it be that something big is about to happen?" Chunju was also thinking. At the same time, in the void in the center of the Dao mystic realm, extremely far away from the two of them, a majestic palace hung in the void and emitted endless divine light. The light changed, and was like a dream. Countless meteors floated in all directions. Every meteor was guarded, and the lowest was 1,000,000 feet tall. In the hall, Formless World sat at the head of the table smiling. His gaze landed on a man in the hall. Morongqi. Back then, the battle of the 10 absolutes was very exciting. The geniuses of the future were still much inferior to us. Formless World sighed. Compared to the chaotic assembly, he had lost his edge. He was more tactful and stable. Morongqi smiled. Of course, after hundreds of millions of years, Brother Formless already has the prestige to control the situation. I'm so envious. Formless World laughed. Fellow Taoist Morong, feel free to ask if you need the Tao mystic realm's help. He had always been passionate about the hidden sect, because the formless transcendent deity had reminded him. I indeed need your help. I heard that the great Tao lake of the Tao mystic realm is a huge opportunity. I want to let my 7 new disciples enter. What do you think? Morongqi asked with a smile. Formless World smiled. Since fellow Taoist Morong has spoken, I naturally allow it. It just so happens that the Tao mystic realm is preparing to hold a grand event like the chaotic assembly. The battle of the geniuses will decide the time in the great Tao lake based on the ranking. Why don't you let your 7 disciples participate? It's a good opportunity to show the geniuses of the Tao mystic realm the glory of the outer world. I'll let them in no matter their ranking. However, fellow Taoist, you must tell them to take it seriously and not slack off. Morongqi smiled. No problem. He cursed silently. He had just taken in his disciple, and their cultivation level was not high. They would embarrass him if they lost. They continued to reminisce, and became more familiar with each other, like brothers. The news of the great Tao lake also spread in the Tao mystic realm. When the news reached Chu Xiaoqi and Chunju, they immediately decided to participate. There was hope of becoming a great Tao sage after entering the great Tao lake. How could they miss such an opportunity? This event was created by the Realm Lord. Their enemies shouldn't dare to act recklessly. At the same time, Formless World invited the various factions of the Endless Era to participate. The Dragon Court also received the news, and Long Hao brought Han Liang to the Tao mystic realm. Long Hao was high-spirited, and felt that this was an opportunity for Han Liang and the Dragon Court to shine. He trusted Han Liang. With his strength, he would definitely be invincible below the great Tao Supreme Realm. Han Liang was also looking forward to finally showing his edge. Third Tao Field. Detected that you are 600 million years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately and destroy all living beings. Create living beings that belong to you. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a primordial fragment. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner, and maintain your original intention. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a primordial fragment. You have obtained a creation heaven's chosen attempt. Hanju opened his eyes, and silently chose the second option. The reward was the same anyway. At this point, he had accumulated 20 great Tao fragments, 17 creation spirit stones, 9 primordial fragments, 49 creation heaven's chosen attempts, 2 heavenly Tao spirit stones, and 2 ultimate origin spirit stones. Hanju took out 9 primordial fragments and fused them. He wanted to improve his bloodline. The ultimate origin fiend celestial is higher than the primordial great creation. The 9 primordial fragments can condense into one ultimate origin fragment. You can obtain the ultimate origin great creation after gathering 9 ultimate origin fragments. Ultimate origin great creation. You can create cultivation techniques, split the world, create races, and create everything. It can do this. Hanju raised his eyebrows. In other words, one ultimate origin great creation required 81 primordial fragments, which was equivalent to 1 billion years. No, after a billion years, he would definitely only receive a reward once every billion years. In other words, it would take tens of billions of years. Hanju was a little dissatisfied. You and I are already so powerful. Why do you have to restrict us? Everything has an extreme number. It's the same for great creation. However, as the karma of creation develops, the extreme number will also constantly increase. Chapter 1151 Mental Demon Conspiracy. Chapter 1151 Mental Demon Conspiracy Ultimate Origin Great Creation. Tens of billions of years? Then he would wait. Hanju didn't lack time now. Let alone he was the only creator lord. No, after reaching 10 billion years old, the system would need 10 billion years to trigger the choice reward. In that case, the time needed would be endless. It seemed that it would take an extremely long time to increase the ultimate origin Fian Celestial's bloodline. Instead of evolving his bloodline, it was better to raise it to its current limit. As for the creation heaven's chosen attempt, Hanju didn't want to use it for the time being. It would definitely be very exciting to use them together when he gathered 100. 100 consecutive draws might produce a heaven-defying junior. Hanju thought silently and opened the emails at the same time. Even more battles broke out in his circle of friends, ever since he had thrown out the great Tao Providence divine authority. He discovered that many of his good friends had gone to the heavenly Tao, including his children. Did these guys think that he had thrown the great Tao Providence divine authority to the heavenly Tao? Impossible. Do you really think I care so much about the heavenly Tao? Hanju smiled. The great Tao Providence divine authority was fluid and had yet to reach the heavenly Tao. Who could obtain it depended on their luck. He was not biased. After reading the emails, he looked at the blank domain. The Tao Mystic Realm became the most famous place in the Endless Era. The event held by Formless World was very successful. It pushed out many geniuses and also spread the Great Tao Lake's reputation. One could increase their comprehension of the Great Tao upon entering it. After the event ended, 33 Great Tao sages were born because of the Great Tao Lake. Everyone under the heavens was shocked. The Tao Mystic Realm's status rose. Formless World could be said to be in high spirits. He had prepared for tens of millions of years, and his name had shaken the heavens. Faced with the Tao Mystic Realm's success, the other factions wanted to imitate it. For a time, all sorts of low-quality Great Tao Lakes, Great Tao Springs, Great Tao Divine Mountains, and so on appeared. Unfortunately, they were all inferior to the Tao Mystic Realm's Great Tao Lake. The Great Tao Lake was the work of a Tao creator. Furthermore, this Tao creator was the greatest leader of the Endless Era. Hanju understood the formless transcendent deity's thoughts, but he didn't dislike it. It was normal to accumulate strength for himself. Furthermore, Formless World's attitude was very good, making Hanju very comfortable. Chu Xiaoqi and Chun Ju escaped the siege and became one of the 33 Great Tao sages. As for Han Liang, he was even more impressive. He directly attained the Great Tao Supreme Realm and became the most famous existence in this event. His name spread throughout the Endless Era, and he was thought to be the most talented prodigy now. The Creator Lord's grandson was not inferior to the primordial Fiend Celestial in terms of physical potential. Hanju was very satisfied with his 2 grandsons' performance. They had already set off, so he didn't need to pay too much attention to them anymore. You can walk your own path from now on, Hanju muttered to himself. The trace of concern he had for them vanished. He had already sent away many children, so he naturally would not be obsessed with a certain grandson. On the other side, Chu Xiaoqi and Han Liang opened their eyes almost at the same time. They frowned and felt inexplicably disappointed and panicked, as if they had lost something. They couldn't deduce what it was. This inexplicable feeling made them very uncomfortable. However, no matter how they searched, they could not deduce it. Hanju continued cultivating. He would choose another descendant to accompany him when he was 1 billion years old. It could also be considered adding a hint of joy to the boring cultivation years. Time passed. Hanju's seclusion began to lengthen after he severed his ties with his grandchildren. 50 million years passed like a dream. Hanju opened his eyes. The environment didn't change from 50 million years ago, but he knew that the outside had already changed drastically. He stretched and smiled. It was better to enter seclusion for a longer time. The increase in cultivation was obvious. He checked his emails as he observed the blank domain. Your son Han Huang established the supreme rules, and his providence increased greatly. Your grandson Chu Xiaoqi was attacked by your good friend, the divine robe Taoist. He was severely injured. Your grand disciple Feng Liang created a space-time world, and his cultivation increased. Your good friend Huang Zuantian received a dream from a transcendent existence. Your son Han Tua was attacked by your good friend Jiang Juesher. Your good friend Dao Ancestor has recovered his true body and established the supreme rules. Your good friend, the formless transcendent, encountered the dream of your enemy, the ninth chaos. Deity, your good friend Yin-Yang Purity Nirvana Deity, encountered the dream of your enemy, the ninth chaos. Han Huang and the Dao Ancestor established the supreme rules. That meant it was only a matter of time before they became Dao creators. Hanju was curious about where the Dao Ancestors' great Dao world was. After deducing, he learned that it was the great Dao world where the Dao heavenly race was located. That great Dao world was still connected to Panga's great Dao world. The two worlds were next to each other, like a single great Dao world. The Dao heavenly race called itself the chaos, as if they were continuing the incense offerings of the old chaos. The Dao Ancestor had actually walked in front of Pangu. Interesting. Apart from these two, the ninth chaos also attracted Hanju's attention. The ninth chaos was still in the ultimate origin heavenly prison and had yet to awaken. In that case, there was only one possibility why he could still visit someone in their dream. The ninth chaos mental demon. This mental demon was extraordinary. The ninth chaos had been split into two. No wonder this fellow had said such harsh words before he died. The mental demon temporarily stayed in the ultimate evil chaotic devil's body. He disappeared for a long time. Could it be that the mental demon was still plotting? Hanju looked at the formless transcendent deity. He directly spied on the dream. Indeed, the ninth chaos wanted to rope in the formless transcendent deity and used the gimmick of surpassing the Tao creator realm to incite him. Unfortunately, he was rejected. The Yin-Yang Purity Nirvana deity also rejected him. However, the chaotic consciousness and Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable were a little tempted. Hanju couldn't deduce where the ninth chaos mental demon was, but it mainly involved the karma on the surface of the blank domain. He could see it. The ninth chaos probably did not expect a creator lord to be so terrifying. Hanju tried to visit the ninth chaos mental demon in his dreams but failed. This way, he could not use the dark nightmare. Where was this fellow hiding? Hanju could only ask after the ninth chaos was successfully enslaved. During this period of time, it was impossible for the mental demon to become a creator lord. If he wanted to become the creator lord, he needed to trigger the basic rules of the blank domain. Once he entered such a state of enlightenment, as the only creator lord, Hanju would definitely sense it. Hanju looked at the great Tao Providence divine authority that was thrown out. No one had obtained this opportunity yet. It was mainly because this opportunity was hidden too well. No one could expect it to help people become Tao creators. Then let's wait a little longer. Hanju smiled. He stood up and walked out of the Taoist temple, preparing to go out for a walk. He did not visit his children and descendants. Instead, he came to the Fusang divine tree. It's transformed ever since the Fusang tree was split into two. Body had been outside all year round. As for the divine tree, because it was given the divine authority by Hanju, it now had an extremely high status in the endless era and controlled space and time. Chapter 11 52 Time Lord. Chapter 1152 Time, Lord, the Fusang Divine Tree trembled upon seeing Hanju appear. It said respectfully, "Greetings, Master." The divine tree was equivalent to a clone. Its will was the same, and it did not become an independent spirit. It was equivalent to the Fusang tree multitasking. Hanju asked, "Can you establish a connection with the origin spacetime?" Tens of millions of years ago, Hanju had sent a voice transmission to the Fusang divine tree and instructed it on this mission. The Fusang divine tree supervised spacetime. How could it be worthy of being the god of spacetime if it couldn't even maintain the origin spacetime? I can't find the origin spacetime you mention, but recently, more and more cultivators have crossed spacetime. Do you think we need to set up a spacetime order? Perhaps I can sense the origin spacetime more clearly after spacetime stabilizes. The divine tree replied with an ashamed tone. Hanju said, "You will set the order of spacetime. I will give you authority. Don't ask me about anything. If you don't do well, I will give the divine authority to another. If you don't do it, you are also not qualified to sit in this position." The Fusang divine tree trembled, and many leaves fell, decorating the pale void into universes. "I'll work hard." The Fusang divine tree's voice was quite weak, like a little girl. Hanju left without getting his answer. Boxen OVL. He originally wanted to guide the Fusang divine tree, but he did not expect it to be so useless. Then forget it. He would reward it after it achieved something. Hanju didn't return to the third Dao field. Instead, he came to the top of the blank domain. The formless transcendent deity established the transcendent divine hall here, symbolizing his noble status. Hanju also planned to create one, but he wanted to create a world instead. He established a hidden domain above the transcendent divine hall. No one sensed it. Even the formless transcendent deity was none the wiser. The difference between a creator lord and a Dao creator was too great. As long as Hanju didn't want the formless transcendent deity to discover it, it would be very difficult for him to sense it even if he stood in front of him. This method naturally used the basic rules of the blank domain. Hanju entered the domain he had created. It was dark red like the sky of purgatory. He waved his right hand and looked at the blue sky. Then he paved an endless land below. The forest covered the ground. Clouds gathered and rain poured down. It gathered in the valley of the mountain and formed a vast sea. A familiar environment appeared. At first glance, it looked like the mortal world. Hanju left a stone statue here that contained a trace of his will. If a fated person came to this world, they would obtain a huge opportunity. Because this world was located above the transcendent divine hall, it was very difficult to discover it. Things in the world were ever changing. The formless transcendent deity might listen to Hanju now, but not in the future. If one day, the formless transcendent deity lost justice and happened to become a stubborn person, this world might become a variable to reverse the situation. Hanju smiled in satisfaction and disappeared. Heavenly Dao, outside the 33rd heaven, in the Universal Hall. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu looked at someone in the hall with a helpless expression. "I really don't know the opportunity of the Lord. If you can't find it, then go somewhere else," Heavenly Venerate Xiandu said. The person he was speaking to was Azure Heaven Mystic. Azure Heaven Mystic was once upon planted in the Heavenly Dao by the chaotic consciousness. His potential had once stunned the Heavenly Dao, but he fell silent after the chaotic consciousness attacked the chaotic assembly. All these years he had been cultivating in seclusion. His cultivation level had already reached the perfected Great Dao Supreme Realm. He had no choice but to come to the Heavenly Dao because he couldn't become a Dao creator on his own. Azure Heaven Mystic frowned and said, "In that case, let me stay in the Heavenly Dao." Heavenly Venerate Xiandu said, "Of course, but don't bully the juniors." Azure Heaven Mystic's personality was too arrogant. In the past, he had made countless enemies in the Heavenly Dao. He clearly rarely killed, but his mouth was foul and annoying. "If I understand." Azure Heaven Mystic waved his hand and left. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu smiled bitterly. Azure Heaven Mystic looked down at the immortal world after walking out of the Universal Hall, his brows still furrowed. "Strange, what did I forget?" Azure Heaven Mystic muttered to himself. He had not returned to the heavenly Tao only to find the opportunity to become a creator lord. Unknowingly, a hint of discomfort appeared in his Tao heart. He felt that he had forgotten something. At first he did not care, but this feeling lingered in his heart and would not go away. He couldn't figure it out, so he decided to personally visit the immortal world. There were many great Tao Supremes hidden in the current immortal world. They were all here to find the Lord's opportunity. Therefore, they left many inheritances in the immortal world, and also planted a fortuitous encounter for countless future geniuses. Dragon Court. This world was surrounded by an extremely majestic golden dragon. The power of the coiling dragon shook the blank domain, causing ordinary factions to not dare to provoke the Dragon Court. A stone pavilion stood quietly above the sea of clouds. In the pavilion was a youth in silk blue clothes. His facial features were exquisite, and his long hair was tied up under a crown, had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, like a young immortal who had walked out of a painting. Han Liang opened his eyes and looked at his hands, frowning. "What's missing?" Han Liang muttered to himself. The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. He grabbed his head, causing his crown to tilt. "You don't recognize your instincts." A voice sounded, and a figure appeared in front of him. Han Liang frowned and slowly stood up. He asked coldly, "Who are you?" He had been in the Dragon Court for some time. He was the strongest person here. Even Long Hao was not his match. However, he sensed danger from the aura in front of him. The figure replied, "You can call me the Time Lord." "Oh, you call yourself the Lord? You're really arrogant." Han Liang said coldly. The sky outside the courtyard changed color. He used his dermic powers to seal the sky to prevent accidentally injuring the living beings of the Dragon Court. The Time Lord chuckled. "It's useless. You can't hurt me." Han Liang suddenly attacked. The stone pavilion exploded, and the sea of clouds churned. However, his dermic powers couldn't do anything to the Time Lord. He was like a shadow. Han Liang flashed in front of the Time Lord and reached out to grab him. However, his hand passed through the ladder. Han Liang's pupils constricted. He immediately used a soul attack, but it was still useless. He couldn't hurt the Time Lord no matter what method he used. It was as if he was hallucinating. As if the Time Lord did not exist. Han Liang stopped and asked in a low voice, "Who are you?" The Time Lord replied, "I am time, and time is me. When the world has the definition of time, there will be me. I am here to lead you on your mission." Han Liang, you are a fiend celestial of the endless era. Your potential is countless times stronger than the chaotic fiend celestial and the primordial fiend celestial. You should be the endless fiend celestial. Your duty is to create a greater domain for other existences, not work for others and compete with them. Chapter 1153 Distance. Chapter 1153 Distance. What does that have to do with you? Han Liang snorted coldly, his heart filled with vigilance. The other party came for him, and might attack at any time. The Time Lord said indifferently, "I want to lead you. I can't let you delay your talent." "How arrogant. I want to see how you will lead me." Killing intent burst out from Han Liang's eyes. The Time Lord suddenly disappeared and his voice echoed in the air. "Han Liang, you will understand sooner or later. I am not your enemy. The two of us will reach a consensus in the future. You will understand when you see through the essence of existence. I hope you're stronger the next time we meet. At that time, I won't persuade you like this anymore." Han Liang frowned. The dermic powers domain in the surrounding sky dissipated, and Long Hao suddenly appeared beside him. He asked, "What happened just now? Why did you suddenly use your dermic powers?" Han Liang did not hide anything, and told him the process of meeting the Time Lord. Long Hao frowned. Boxinoviel. Com from this name. He knew that the other party was not easy to deal with. Han Liang's strength was already very terrifying. He couldn't hurt the other party at all. When did such an expert appear in the endless era? Long Hao said in a low voice, "Go ask Master." "Grandpa." Han Liang's eyes lit up. That's right. There was nothing in the world that his grandfather did not know. Third Tao Field. Han Ju opened his eyes. Another 10 million years had passed. He called Han Liang. who was waiting outside the Taoist temple in. Although he had clones in the Tao field, they usually did not care about this. They were only responsible for letting people in and out, and guarding the Tao field. Han Liang had been waiting for hundreds of thousands of years. After entering the Tao field, he bowed respectfully. For some reason, he was extremely nervous when facing Han Ju. The wait made him realize that they were not only grandfather and grandson. There was also an insurmountable gap between the two. He knew how powerful his grandfather truly was after leaving this place. Han Ju smiled and asked, "What is it?" Han Liang took a deep breath and tried his best to calm down. He looked up and said, "Grandpa, do you know the Time Lord?" "I know. Who is he?" "He's one of your uncle masters, but he has already severed karma. No one remembers him, as if he had never existed." Han Ju replied casually, as if he was talking about a small matter. Han Liang widened his eyes. He did not expect the mysterious and terrifying Time Lord to be from the same sect. Was the hidden sect so terrifying? Ever since he was young, the hidden sect disciples he had encountered had always been very kind, causing him to ignore the sect's terrifying foundation. Han Liang asked, "Grandpa, what should I do?" Han Ju said, "What do you think? I naturally can't listen to him. Although he's Uncle Master, he wants to teach me how to do things. I feel that there's a conspiracy. Then don't listen to him. But I can't defeat him. Then think of a way to beat him." Han Liang was speechless. Han Ju said, "Did you come to me to ask about his background, or do you want me to help you deal with him?" Han Liang was silent. He wanted to say that he would deal with the Time Lord, but he knew that he couldn't say that. It was too degrading. He was already a great Tao Supreme, the publicly acknowledged strongest prodigy. Did he want his grandfather to help him every time he encountered trouble? How would he be able to live if news of this spread? What would his grandfather think of him? Furthermore, Han Ju's attitude might not help him. After all, the other party was his grandfather's disciple. Han Liang gritted his teeth and said, "I just want to know his identity." Han Ju smiled. "He's not that terrifying. The reason why you can't hurt him is that he doesn't dare to appear in front of you." Han Liang was stunned. Han Ju was telling the truth. Ji Xianxin used a method similar to a dream, but it was reflected in reality. But Han Liang couldn't tell. Ji Xianxin did not dare to personally come into contact with Han Liang. This would anger his origin consciousness. Han Liang was a Tao creator in the future. Tao creators could sense when others used the power of space and time to come into contact with their past selves, unless the other party was a creator lord. Such a situation could also be used. It was a fool's dream to go to the past and kill enemies he could not defeat in the future. If he was stronger than the enemy, he did not need to go to the past. In the eyes of sages and above, space and time were only rules that could be controlled. Han Liang suddenly clapped his hands and shouted, "Damn it, so he's deliberately mystifying things." He felt relieved that the Time Lord was not that terrifying. Han Liang hurriedly thanked Han Ju. After chatting for a while, he left the Tao field. Han Liang was worried on the way back to the Dragon Court. He could feel that his grandfather no longer doted on him as much as before. There was a distance between them now. This distance made him almost forget that they were grandfather and grandson. He suddenly thought of Morongqi's words. Leaving the Tao field might really make him regret it. But soon his eyes became firm again. He, Han Liang, had to rely on himself in the end. He couldn't always rely on others. Time Lord, very good. You can be my whetstone. Han Liang regained his confidence and was in high spirits. In the Tao field, Han Ju began to check his emails. In his opinion, Ji Xianxin pretending to be the Time Lord was only a small matter. Ji Xianxin, Heavenly Venerate Sun, and Feng Liang had already gathered in the origin space-time and reached an agreement. What they wanted was not Han Liang, but to surpass the Tao creator realm. Han Liang's potential was their hope. Unfortunately, they couldn't succeed. Han Ju already saw that in the future, the three of them would fall at the feet of Han Huang, Primordial Origin, and Huang Zuantian. Han Ju could see too many futures. It was impossible for him to be wary of all futures. In that case, it was better to kill all living beings, so that he would be left alone. However, In that case, the basic rules of the blank domain would backfire. Primordial chaos, chaos, and the heavenly Tao. Previously, they seemed to be isolated by the blank domain, but they were actually protected. How could they stop the basic rules if they really wanted to destroy them? Putting down the matter of Ji Xianxian, Han Ju focused on reading the emails. Han Huang and the Tao ancestor had not moved recently. It seemed they immersed themselves in the construction of the great Tao world after establishing the supreme rules. Han Ju looked at them. Han Huang's primordial chaos developed the fastest among the three primordial chaos. Its scale had already surpassed the heavenly Tao. All sorts of rules and great Tao were gradually being perfected, attracting an endless stream of races to join it. The Tao ancestor encountered trouble. Back then, he had established the Tao heavenly race to obtain opportunities in the great Tao immeasurable calamity. However, now the Tao heavenly race dominated his and Panga's great Tao world. Any foreign races that joined were enslaved by the Tao heavenly race, causing their reputation to begin to worsen. How could the great Tao world be established just by relying on one race? The Tao ancestor began to think of a way to suppress the Tao heavenly race, but he couldn't personally take action. Therefore, various heavenly tribulations and fates of the Tao heavenly race began to appear. This powerful race that wanted to dominate the world had no choice but to drop its delusions. Han Ju began to look forward to it. Between Han Huang and the Tao ancestor, who could become a Tao creator first? Chapter 1154 Development Chaos. Chapter 1154 Development Chaos. The chaos had been destroyed to usher in the endless era, but many great Tao worlds still used this name. For example, the great Tao world created by the Tao ancestor and Pangu called themselves the Chaos. Pangu was the strongest chaotic fiend celestial. He called himself the Chaos, and was considered orthodox. The current chaos was led by the Tao heavenly race. Many races were born under them, but they were either killed by the Tao heavenly race or enslaved. From the point of view of the Tao heavenly race, there was nothing wrong. It would be the same if any race obtained power. However, recently, all sorts of calamities appeared in the chaos. Even evil devils were born and wreaked havoc in the chaos, and ate those of the Tao heavenly race. After fighting all year round, natural disasters and man-made disasters caused the Tao heavenly race to lose more and more people. On this day, the great Tao supremes of the Tao heavenly race gathered in the Tao ancestor hall and asked to see him. The Tao heavenly race had unparalleled potential. After nearly 200 million years of development, they had given birth to 5 great Tao supremes. In the entire endless era, they were considered a first-rate race. The 5 human ancestors sat on the ground, waiting quietly. After an unknown period of time, the Tao ancestor finally appeared. The Tao ancestor had white hair and a youthful face. He wore a white Taoist robe and sat on the lotus throne. His body emitted a holy light. The 5 human ancestors immediately bowed. Even though they had already attained the great Tao supreme realm, they still looked mediocre in front of the Tao ancestor. Boxin Com they could reach this point because of the Tao heavenly race's providence. Otherwise, with their potential, they would still have to endure for a while before they could attain the great Tao supreme realm. The human ancestor in the middle said, "Tao ancestor, the providence of the Tao heavenly race has not been good recently. What happened in the chaos?" They were all smart people and realized that the problem was in the chaos. How could so many disasters and evil devils suddenly appear? The Tao ancestor said calmly, "The chaos has its own rules to derive. How difficult is it now? Perhaps we should find the reason from the Tao heavenly race. As the protagonists of the chaos, other than ensuring your own benefits, you should shoulder more responsibility." The 5 human ancestors were moved. One of them said in distress, "How? We'll immediately attack if we see any intruders. We can't build the chaos, right? The power of rules here was created by you and ancestor god Pangu. We can't interfere. Yes, we've already tried our best. We can't let the other races stand side by side with us, right? That will definitely bring a calamity in the long run." That's right. There will definitely be an endless conflict if other races enter the great Tao world. Tao ancestor, The Tao heavenly race was personally created by you and ancestor god Pangu. Are you abandoning us? The more the 5 human ancestors spoke, the more indignant they became. The Tao ancestor remained silent. After a long while, after the 5 human ancestors calmed down, the Tao ancestor said faintly, "Let me ask you, is there a major faction in this endless era that can decide the fate of all the great Tao worlds?" A human ancestor replied, "Does the hidden sect count?" The Tao ancestor said, "Not really. When has the hidden sect ever controlled anything? Now they have even split into many factions, and are fighting openly and secretly. You should be able to witness these things." The human ancestors were silent. It was indeed the case. No force in the endless era dared to be dictatorial. Even the formless transcendent deity was suppressed by a lord, who did not care at all. But how could the chaos compare to the endless era? Even if they unified the chaos, it was only a drop in the ocean in the endless era. Which of those major factions did not control a great Tao world alone? Like the Tao heavenly race, they were even stronger. Some factions even occupied several great Tao worlds. Why couldn't they? The Tao ancestor saw the dissatisfaction and unwillingness in their hearts. He said, "This is the calamity of the Tao heavenly race. If you are not fated, then wait and see. This is the trend. I'm busy creating the world now, and can't support you anymore." With that, the Tao ancestor vanished. The 5 human ancestors looked at each other. They were about to speak when the leader said in a low voice, "Let's go back. Don't disturb the Tao ancestors' cultivation." His eyes flickered with anger. Such a situation also happened in the primordial chaos. But Han Huang was even more domineering than the Tao ancestor. He changed the primordial overlord just like that. Whoever dared to say anything would be directly destroyed by Han Huang. If the great Tao world wanted to develop, it needed countless races to be born. It was ever-changing. Only by opening more and more vitality, and expanding the great Tao could they obtain more creation. The great Tao world could only stagnate if it was dominated by one race. The news of Han Huang and the Tao ancestor creating the supreme rules quickly spread in the endless era. The supreme rules could not be hidden. They hung above the 3,000 great Tao, and could be seen by all the great Tao supremes. Ever since the start of the endless era, the Tao creator realm had become the target of all the great Tao supremes. However, no matter how the great Tao world developed, it could not create supreme rules. A new Tao creator. For a time, the entire endless era surged. Han Huang was the primordial fiend celestial, the contributor to the great Tao immeasurable calamity. And the Tao ancestor, he was once the #1 person in the chaos. Later he mysteriously disappeared. They did not expect him to appear again, and even wanted to become a Tao creator. He could be said to be a legend. Regarding who was stronger, it also became a topic of conversation among the experts. Of course, no one below the great Tao Supreme Realm knew about all of this. In the starry sky, on a meteor, Chu Xiaoqi and Chenju meditated side by side. Chu Xiaoqi kept staring into the depths of the starry sky. He was investigating something. He sighed. Primordial Fiend Celestial Han Huang, Tao Ancestor Hong Jun. Who are these two? They've become so famous recently. Chenju said, "Don't think too much. That's a domain we can't involve ourselves with. What you see are just groundless accusations. We can't even jump out of the Tao mystic realm." Although they had already become great Tao sages, too many geniuses in the Tao mystic realm advanced at the same time. Not only that, but the Tao mystic realm was also constantly expanding. Some factions also showed some friction. Indeed, there's always someone stronger. Take Han Liang for example. Oh my god, he's really ferocious. Furthermore, he doesn't belong to the Tao mystic realm. Chu Xiaoqi sighed. Han Liang was the best in the competition for the Great Tao Lake. At the mention of Han Liang, Chen Ju opened his eyes and frowned. The first time he felt defeated was when he faced Han Liang. He was furious. He would regain his reputation sooner or later. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of them. It was Huang Zuantian. Chu Xiaoqi was pleasantly surprised. "Master." He hurriedly got up, and Chen Ju followed suit. He looked at Huang Zuantian in surprise. Chu Xiaoqi really had a master? Huang Zuantian ignored him and stared at Chu Xiaoqi. What have you been doing all these years? Chu Xiaoqi was stunned. Cultivating. Huang Zuantian snorted. The two of you have talent, but you have no goals. You're just wasting time. Chu Xiaoqi scratched his head. Chen Ju frowned, and was indeed a little ashamed. He was also very confused. He had thought about preaching and establishing a sect, but he was not interested in teaching his disciples. Chapter 1155 Dugawu, Prodigy Domain. Chapter 1155 Dugawu, Prodigy Domain. Then what do you think we should target, Master? Do you want us to fight for power? Chu Xiaoqi chuckled. He felt that his current life was quite good. He had nothing to cultivate, and could go out with Chen Ju when he was bored. Huang Zuantian snorted. I'm confused. At your cultivation level, cultivation alone is not enough. You definitely have to create your own world. Whether the world can take form depends on whether the power you nurture is strong enough. With more living beings, there will naturally be more friction. Conflict is inevitable. Chu Xiaoqi was silent. He felt that it made sense, but he also felt that something was wrong. Chen Ju asked, Senior, other than creating a world, is there really no other way? Huang Zuantian glanced at him and said, Perhaps, but not at the moment. Your question is like asking if there are any other ways to become stronger other than cultivation. Chen Ju frowned. Huang Zuantian said, The Tao mystic realm is about to welcome a drastic change. It's very difficult for you to stop it. Take care. With that he vanished. Chu Xiaoqi and Chen Ju looked at each other, and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Boxin OVL. COM Huang Zuantian came to talk about this? Chen Ju sat down again and suddenly said, Perhaps it's time for us to part ways. Chu Xiaoqi's eyes widened. If you want to create a force, we can join forces. We've worked together for long enough. It's time to split up. Xiaoqi, everyone has to have their own goals. The so-called carefreeness is too much. Chen Ju shook his head and looked into the distance. He became extremely determined. He seemed to have made a decision. Chu Xiaoqi wanted to say something but hesitated. Looking at Chen Ju's side profile, his words were stuck in his throat, and he could not say anything. Indeed, if they did not separate now, when would they? Even for couples, how many people could hold hands for tens of millions of years? Time passed. The heavens couldn't affect Han Ju no matter how they fought. He stayed in the Tao field and cultivated quietly. Time passed quickly. In the past few years, the order of spacetime had stabilized. Transmigrators were almost extinct. The Fusang tree was also afraid of disappointing Han Ju. This also caused spacetime to stabilize. The Fusang tree's cultivation level also increased. She was overjoyed and treated spacetime more seriously. In the blink of an eye, 30 million years passed. Han Ju walked out of the Taoist temple and stretched facing the sun. Comfortable. In the past few years, his cultivation level had increased faster than before. He sensed carefully and benefited from the development of the ultimate origin world. Han Ling wanted to obtain the bloodline of the evil devil in the ultimate origin world, but she failed time and time again. The evil devil was also constantly becoming stronger. Because he attracted the attention of the various major factions, other geniuses of low birth began to appear. The ultimate origin world was no longer as calm as before. Instead, it was surging. Chaos was not a good thing for the major factions of the ultimate origin world. But sometimes, it was beneficial to all living beings, especially living beings with low backgrounds. Chaos was also an opportunity for them. Of course, regardless of whether they were in chaos, it was survival of the fittest. Han Ju disappeared and came to the ultimate origin world. This was the edge of the ultimate origin world. Blood chi filled the void. The broken meteors formed rings. In the center of the rings floated a huge stone tablet. The stone tablet was carved with blood words. The blood chi in this area was emitted from these blood words. A figure sat on the stone tablet. It was a white-haired man. He was slightly thin and handsome, but because he was only skin and bones, he looked very weak. How long can you last by squeezing out your potential like this? A chuckle sounded. The white-haired man couldn't help but open his eyes. An extremely handsome man appeared in front of him. He subconsciously frowned. Han Ju stared at the white-haired man with a faint smile. This white-haired man was the evil devil that Han Ling coveted. He was the strongest talent born in the ultimate origin world, and was even stronger than the great Dauphin Celestials. The white-haired man frowned and asked, "Who are you?" He didn't attack, because Han Ju made him feel a sense of familiarity. Han Ju sat in front of him and smiled. "It doesn't matter who I am. The point is that you're in trouble. If this stalemate continues, you'll reach the end sooner or later." The white-haired man suddenly thought of something and asked with an excited expression, "You are Grandpa Deity?" He was very excited. Han Ju smiled and didn't deny it. The white-haired man's potential was number one in the ultimate origin world, and he was blessed by the heavens. How could Han Ju not know? However, he didn't specially take care of him. He imitated the heavenly Tao's chaotic domain. Anyone with outstanding potential could enter the chaotic domain. This was how he knew of Tao Sovereign and Zhao Xianyuan. The threshold of the ultimate origin world's genius domain was extremely high. Currently, only the white-haired man could step into it. This person's name was Dugu Wu. He was already an orphan when he was aware of himself. Fortunately, he had awakened his bloodline and stepped into the domain of geniuses. There, a wisp of Han Ju's will taught him cultivation. Only then could he make a name for himself. If not for Han Ju, no matter how talented Dugu Wu was, how could he have relied on himself to cultivate until today? It was precisely because of the opportunities in the prodigy domain that Dugu Wu disdained the other factions. Dugu Wu kowtowed excitedly. Han Ju smiled and asked, "You know it's me just by looking at my figure? Your aura is so unfathomable. No one can give me such a feeling in the entire ultimate origin world. Grandpa Deity, can I call you Master?" Dugu Wu asked carefully. He was already a great Tao Supreme. Not many people could resist him in the entire ultimate origin world. However, facing Han Ju, he couldn't resist at all. It was definitely the person in his memories. Han Ju smiled and said, "It's been a long time since I took in a disciple. Master, please accept me as your disciple. Do you know my identity?" "I don't know. The emperor who wants to snatch your bloodline is my daughter. I created the great Dauphin Celestials, and the nether race who bullied you." "What?" Dugu Wu was shocked and in disbelief. Han Ju stared at him with a smile. His expression changed. His emotions were extremely complicated. "Dugu Wu has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 6 stars." Dugu Wu looked at him and said, "Master, you definitely won't harm me. To be able to create the great Dauphin Celestials and the nether race, you should be the master of the ultimate origin world, a supreme existence. After thinking about it, if you also like my potential and your daughter has a way to snatch it, how can you not? The reason why you didn't stop her is also a form of training for me, right?" Han Ju said, "The karma in this world is unpredictable. Enemies can become friends and vice versa. You've been wandering alone for so long. You should be able to sense your problem. Actually, you didn't have to do this." At first, the great Dauphin Celestials had recruited Dugu Wu, but he was disdainful and spoke arrogantly, infuriating the other party. Therefore, they spread rumors, causing all the great Dauphin Celestials to take their anger out on him. He couldn't be bothered to explain as he yearned to fight. As time passed, Dugu Wu became the entire ultimate origin world's enemy. Dugu Wu was silent. He let down his guard in front of Han Ju and sighed. Chapter 1156, A Thought to Server Karma. Chapter 1156, A Thought to Server Karma, Master. Do you want me to make peace with them now? Dugu Wu looked up at him and asked in a low voice. Han Ju smiled. "I naturally won't interfere in your karma. I just want you to become stronger. You have already entered a bottleneck. Battle can't help you become stronger. But because you have too much hatred, once you create a world, you will be destroyed by your enemies. Do you have any regrets?" Dugu Wu sighed. "It's definitely a lie to say that I don't regret it at all. However, I'm really indignant to let go of my hatred like this. I believe they won't let it go." Han Ju smiled. "What do you think of the ultimate origin world?" Dugu Wu replied, "I hate those high and mighty fiend celestials. I was born in the ultimate origin world, so I naturally don't hate it. As my cultivation level increased, I also learned that my potential was a gift from the world. Do you know of the existence of the other great Tao worlds? I know. There's a wider place outside the ultimate origin world. That emperor is an outsider. I've been to the netherworld. There's a place there that specializes in transforming the ultimate origin world's providence. The ultimate origin world seems to be stronger than the other great Tao worlds. Otherwise, so many living beings wouldn't come here, Dugawu said in a low voice. This was the truth. Currently, in the entire endless era, the great Tao world that was the most attractive to living beings was the ultimate origin world. It was created by the Lord. The spirit chi far exceeded the other great Tao worlds. Just the 9 supreme rules were enough to make mighty figures go mad. The ultimate origin world was very strong and could suppress outsiders. Hanju smiled and said, your potential boxin OVL. COM should be used to protect the ultimate origin world, not to fight among yourselves. What do you think? Dugawu asked helplessly. Tell me, what should I do? Hanju smiled and said, I can erase the memories of all living beings and let you start over. Dugawu widened his eyes. It was not difficult to erase memories, but to erase the memories of all living beings. This included his enemies whom he had difficulty dealing with. Dugawu asked nervously, is this too troublesome? Troublesome? It'd just take a thought from me. Even Dugawu, who had experienced many storms, was shocked. What kind of ability was this? Hanju saw through his thoughts and clapped his hands gently. He smiled and said, all right, from now on, all living beings have forgotten about you. It was very simple to make them forget about Dugawu. Just erase his karma with all living beings. Not to mention the Creator Lord. Even a Tao creator could do it, and the range that the Creator Lord could cover included the Tao creators. Dugawu trembled. He didn't feel anything. If not for the fact that the other party was the grandfather deity he had acknowledged, he would have thought that the other party was playing with him. Hanju raised his hand and waved. Hanyu appeared beside him. Dugawu immediately became nervous and waited solemnly. Hanyu was still meditating and cultivating. Sensing that something was wrong, he opened his eyes. The moment he saw Hanju, he immediately knelt down in fear and trepidation. This was the first time Dugawu had seen Hanyu like this. The leader of the Nether race was one of the most powerful existences in the ultimate origin world. He had always looked down on him previously. Hanju said, do you know this child? Hanyu turned to look at Dugawu and shook his head. No. Then, the life fiend celestial appeared beside Hanju. Dugawu's expression became strange. Hanju said, this child's talent is unparalleled. He will stay in the ultimate origin world in the future. He's considered one of my disciples. You will protect the ultimate origin world together. The life fiend celestial sized up Dugawu and praised him. You're actually stronger than me at such a young age. Dugawu coughed. Please take care of me in the future. Sure. The life fiend celestial laughed. Dugawu felt relieved and was even more respectful towards Hanju. Dugawu was born alone. He had been targeted ever since he displayed his potential. His hatred came from fighting. Because he did not have any family or good friends around him. He did not have any blood feuds. Hanju smiled and said, you guys can chat. The endless era will change again. The ultimate origin world needs more geniuses. Don't let the other great Tao worlds catch up to us. He disappeared after saying his piece. Hanyu and the life fiend celestial did not make the atmosphere awkward. Instead, they talked to Dugawu warmly. Dugawu looked at these two faces that he had once hated the most and felt extremely uncomfortable. However, it had to be said that the disgust in his heart had greatly decreased. It was actually good that they were not enemies. Dugawu was still a little worried, afraid that they were pretending. Then, he followed the life fiend celestial and Hanyu to see the masters of the various factions in the ultimate origin world and obtained unprecedented treatment. Hanyu said that whoever dared to scheme against Dugawu would not be able to withstand the consequences. Only then did Dugawu realize that Hanju was really terrifying. He clapped his hands and changed the memories of all living beings. In the third Tao field, after settling the matter of Dugawu, Hanju continued to observe the endless era. He had his own plans for helping him. As the Lord, How could he not have a new Tao creator from the living beings from his own ultimate origin world? Perhaps Duguwu couldn't catch up to Han Huang and the Tao ancestor, but he wouldn't fall too far behind. In the future, the more Tao creators appeared in the ultimate origin world, the better. This could restrain the current Tao creators. Compared to his children, Hanju believed in his ultimate origin world more. All the living beings in the ultimate origin world were also his children. Besides, the stronger the ultimate origin world was, the stronger he was. The stronger he was, the more the ultimate origin world benefited. Hanju closed his eyes and resumed cultivation after watching the endless era for a while. Only by maintaining a cultivation attitude could he be endless. Surpassing the Creator Lord realm was something he had to do. In the netherworld, Long Hao and Han Liang were advancing on the bridge of forgetfulness. Where are we going? Han Liang couldn't help but ask. Long Hao pulled him out mysteriously and refused to say anything. Long Hao smiled and said, "To a place filled with opportunities." Han Liang asked, "Where? What opportunities could there be in the netherworld?" "Ultimate origin world," Long Hao said firmly with a fanatical expression. Han Liang was surprised. He naturally knew about the ultimate origin world. It was a great Tao world personally established by the Lord, and was called the strongest great Tao world. However, the ultimate origin world was extremely xenophobic. Only locals could live there. If they wanted to enter, they had to change their karma. But, don't worry, I have a way to hide our karma. This trip to the ultimate origin world won't last long. We just have to find a treasure. This treasure can help you create your great Tao world. Haven't you always been unable to succeed? Perhaps you're just lacking external help. After all, you're young. If you don't have opportunities, it's very difficult to surpass your stage. Long Hao waved his hand, as if he was thinking for him. A figure walked over. Strong light flashed, startling Long Hao and Han Liang. They were pleasantly surprised when they saw each other. "Ju Emperor, why are you here?" Long Hao asked. He wanted to call her junior sister Linger, but he felt that it was inappropriate. After all, this was the netherworld, and it was easy to be spied on. Chapter 1157 System Opportunity. Chapter 1157 System Opportunity. Han Ling nodded slightly and asked, "Are you going to the ultimate origin world?" The ultimate origin world was in a remote corner of the endless era. It was too far away even to great Tao Supremes. The netherworld was closer. "That's right. You just returned from the ultimate origin world?" "Yes, go ahead." Han Ling nodded slightly and brushed past him. Han Liang turned around. He was secretly puzzled. What was wrong with Fourth Aunt? Why did it feel like she was distracted? Long Hao was also a little puzzled, but he did not ask further. It wasn't good to ask about other people's private matters. At the same time, Han Ling was also puzzled. Strange, why was I in the ultimate origin world? Why do I feel that something is wrong? Boxin OVL. Han Ling felt uneasy. She felt that something had happened, but she couldn't understand when she thought about it carefully. It was as if she had a dream, but she had forgotten about it for some reason. The more she thought about it, the more uncomfortable she felt. There was definitely something fishy. 10 million years later, Hanju reached 700 million years of age. The reward this time was no different from before, so he still chose the second option. He opened his eyes and summoned Han Ling, who had been waiting outside the Taoist temple for some time. Han Ling entered the temple and bowed respectfully before revealing her troubles. So she had forgotten something in confusion. There were actually many existences like her, but others did not have a way to have their questions answered. They would forget about it as time passed. Hanju smiled and asked, "What do you think you've forgotten? With your cultivation, who can affect you?" Han Ling frowned and subconsciously said, "Tao Creator? But why did a Tao Creator interfere with me going to the ultimate origin?" Before she could finish speaking, her expression froze as she looked at her father in shock. Hanju smiled, but it gave her endless pressure, startling her so much that she lowered her head. At this moment, many possibilities appeared in her mind. Could it be that she had offended her father? She understood herself. Without great desire, it was impossible for her to go far away. Hanju asked, How's the management of your great Tao world? Han Ling came back to her senses and replied, I can't condense the supreme rules. It's just like an ordinary world. Other than expanding, there's no substantial strengthening. Her tone was bitter. The news that Han Huang had created the supreme rules deeply agitated her. Although she had a good relationship with him, she had never felt inferior to her second brother. She wasn't the only one. Han Ju's other children thought the same. At most, they felt that their opportunities were inferior to their other siblings. Only Han Yunjin acknowledged that he was mediocre. Han Ju began to preach the Tao, and used his Tao voice to bring Han Ling into a strange state. In an instant, she seemed to see a colorful world. Countless lights coiled around her. Somehow she felt a very strange power. Countless memories surged into her mind. Then with a boom, she suddenly woke up. She opened her eyes and saw her father's face. That was? Han Ling asked carefully. Her tone was nervous and filled with anticipation. Han Ju winked. This is a secret between us, father and daughter. Don't tell anyone, understand? Just now, Han Ju had brought her to experience the basic rules. It was extremely helpful for her to establish her great Tao world. She could still take another step forward after becoming a Tao creator. At least, the other Tao creators had never come into contact with the basic rules. However, it was impossible for Han Ling to become a creator lord for now. Her potential made it impossible. In the entire endless era, other than Han Ju, there was no one with the potential to become a creator lord currently. Not even the primordial fiend celestial. The original primordial fiend celestial had even failed to become a Tao creator. Duga Wu was similar to the primordial fiend celestial. The current ultimate origin world couldn't give birth to a potential comparable to its creator. Han Ling was excited and hurriedly thanked him. Han Ju said meaningfully, snatching the creation of others to fulfill yourself seems to be the survival of the fittest. It's the primordial rule. But if you walk too many of these paths, you'll get lost sooner or later. Furthermore, with this path, you'll only accumulate more and more enemies. Don't ignore it. The previous ninth chaos thought he was invincible. Didn't he still die? Han Ling was silent. Han Ju said, go back. Han Ling took a deep breath. Then, she stood up and bowed. She said seriously, Father, you're right. Even second brother can repent. How can I take the wrong path again? I'll let go of those people I refined into emperor soldiers and apologize to them. If you do well, you might be able to shoulder more responsibility aside from the creation emperor court. Han Ju chuckled. Han Ling nodded. Although she was a little curious, she knew that it was not the time yet. Just like that, Han Ling left. Han Ju smiled. As for whether she really woke up, only time would tell. Only after Han Ling truly practiced it would she know if the path was wrong. She had already encountered a wall with Duga Wu. All these years, her cultivation had not increased. She should understand that this path was wrong. Currently, Han Huang and Han Ling had both veered to the right path. Han Tua and Han Qing'er didn't worry Han Ju much. As for Han Yunjin, this youngest son made him relieved as usual. Han Ju looked at his great Tao Providence divine authority. It was time to be discovered after so many years. His great Tao Providence divine authority flowed into a mortal world. This was also his thought. He wanted to give mortals a chance, and not be icing on the cake for the other mighty figures. He had come from a mortal. He hoped to continue this inheritance. Land there and wait for the fated person, Han Ju thought silently. The corners of his mouth curled up in anticipation. He transformed the great Tao Providence divine authority into a system, and recalled his experience. This system was completely under his control. He wasn't worried that the other party would betray him. 100 years later, Han Ju was disappointed. The first owner of the divine authority system was too arrogant, and was killed by a passing mighty figure. The divine authority system was lost in the cycle of reincarnation, and fell into another mortal world. She, the second master, was a woman. She was not as arrogant as her predecessor. However, was deceived and took the wrong path, becoming a demoness who harmed an area. After thousands of years, she fell for the trap of love, and lost the divine authority system. It seemed that it would take a long time for anyone to rely on the divine authority system, to kill his way out. In Hanju's settings, the divine authority system needed to be liberated bit by bit. If he forcefully gave the system's master too much power, it was very easy to lose himself. If it was too strong, it would also attract the covetous eyes of other mighty figures. Then, Hanju closed his eyes and continued cultivating. On the other side, Heavenly Dao Buzhou Divine Mountain, Han Yu and Han Yunjin gathered in the hall. Han Yunjin said with a melancholic expression, "I shouldn't have told that brat about father's experience. Now this kid is obsessed. He actually dares to think of becoming the second divine might heavenly sage. He doesn't even look at his potential. He's not even worthy of carrying his brother Han Liang's shoes." Han Yu faced this extremely senior good friend and smiled. "Oh, you don't easily determine his future. This will only make him more stubborn." Chapter 1158 Mysterious Stone Statue. Chapter 1158 Mysterious Stone Statue. Sigh. This kid has been disobedient since he was young. He relied on my doting on his mother to act recklessly. Help me deal with him. Han Yunjin sighed with a worried expression. He had once been worried that Han Liang would become a scourge. He did not expect him to turn out fine. Instead, his other son with mediocre potential had become a scourge of the heavenly Tao. Han Yu shook his head. It's not easy to deal with. Furthermore, he will definitely guess that it was you if I make a move. Han Yunjin sighed again. Han Yu smiled and said, "Why don't we send him to the three ancestors? They definitely have a way to discipline him." The three ancestors were naturally Han Tuo, Han Huang and Han Ling. They were already top mighty figures, the strongest existences below the Tao creator realm. They each had their own forces, and were stronger than the heavenly Tao. Han Yunjin said in distress, "I'm just afraid that this kid will learn true skills, and become even more lawless in the future." Han Yu shook his head, and stopped trying to persuade him. He did not want to participate in Han Yunjin's family matters. Now that time was peaceful, Han Yu only wanted to comprehend his great Tao, and not torture himself. Han Yunjin quickly stood up to leave. Box in OVL. Com Han Yu smiled. At this moment, a figure appeared beside him. It was Qin Ling, Han Yu's grand disciple. This former heavenly Tao soul, primordial world overlord body, ancestral dragon providence, son of the immeasurable calamity, and son of heaven and earth, was also a mighty figure above all living beings now. However, he was still far inferior to Han Huang and the others. Qin Ling sat in front of him and said, "The situation isn't good. Master disappeared into the chaos and might have died. Heavenly Calamity Emperor has already sent someone to investigate." Qin Ling's master, Tianyong, was Han Yu's disciple, and also the son of Heavenly Calamity Emperor. He had once brought the Calamity race to invade the Heavenly Tao, and was subdued by Hanju with the primordial heavenly prison. Tianyong and Qin Ling were only master and disciple. Qin Ling had always been personally taught by Han Yu. Han Yu frowned. That unfilial disciple died? His expression darkened after he pinched his fingers to deduce. Although his relationship with Tianyong was very thin, they were still master and disciple. He stood up and said, "Let's go to the chaos together. It's said that the Tao heavenly race is extremely domineering. I want to see how domineering they are." Qin Ling nodded and stood up. His eyes flickered coldly. He was bored and had a chance to stretch. How could he miss it? Time passed like a dream. Those who died only left traces in history, as if they had never existed. 50 million years passed. Hanju opened his eyes. He stretched and looked at the blank domain. He first paid attention to the Tao ancestors' chaos. The Tao heavenly race was already gone. The greatest thing that had happened in the past 50 million years was the destruction of the Tao heavenly race. Because they were too powerful, they had offended too many factions and attracted siege. At first, they could still forcefully hold on by relying on their defensive advantage. Later, the Tao ancestor severed their providence, and the Tao heavenly race walked towards their end. It was worth mentioning that in the end, the Tao heavenly race actually sacrificed their entire race and created the most talented Tao heavenly being. Then, he was thrown into the cycle of reincarnation. Even the Tao ancestor couldn't stop them. Although the Tao heavenly race was destroyed, it did not mean that they would not make a comeback. Many mighty figures were teasing the Tao ancestor. They said that he had personally destroyed the race he had created and left behind a source of trouble. It was truly unwise. Another voice also said that as long as the Tao ancestor became a Tao creator, the root of the trouble was nothing. Hanju noticed that Han Yu's disciple Tianyong had also died at the hands of the Tao heavenly race. Among the forces surrounding the Tao heavenly race were the Calamity race, Han Yu, and Qin Ling. Apart from the Tao ancestors' abandonment, the extinction of the Tao heavenly race was also because they were arrogant and had outstanding potential. They looked down on the other races, forming a huge amount of hatred over the long years. Hanju didn't pay special attention to Tianyong and couldn't be bothered to revive him. The hidden sect had countless disciples. It was the same for his descendants. People just died as time passed. After purging the Tao heavenly race, countless races began to appear in the chaos. It could be said that hundreds of flowers bloomed at once. The rules also became more and more perfected. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before the Tao ancestor condensed a second supreme rule. Apart from the Tao ancestor, in the other chaos beside him, Pangu also condensed his first supreme rule. Hanju checked it and discovered that in the entire blank domain, 5 great Tao supremes had already condensed at least one supreme rule. They were Han Huang, the Tao ancestor, Pangu, the primordial ancestor god, and the Holy Mother of Order. The Holy Mother of Order surprised him. She had lived for countless years and was as ancient as the primordial ancestor god. She was one of the first living beings created by the 8th chaos. Her potential might not be top-notch, but her experience was definitely so. This was also a good thing. In any case, the Holy Mother of Order was Hanju's servant. Her favorability was maxed out, and he was not afraid of betrayal. At first glance, Hanju's power was not dominant. In fact, he still occupied half of the territory. He wanted to manage this atmosphere. Something else was worthy of Hanju's attention. That was that the future Tao creator, Heavenly Venerate Sun, who had descended in the great Tao immeasurable calamity, had already been born. He had caused many troubles in the heavenly Tao. Now he was training with Han Tua and Etian. This kid was still far from becoming a Tao creator. He wasn't a threat for the time being. Hanju retracted his gaze and started to check his emails. The emails were also exciting, and he read them quietly. Hanju didn't resume cultivation immediately after reading the emails. Instead, he checked the Divine Authority system. The Divine Authority system already had a new master. This person was now a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, and stood out in a small world in the Tao mystic realm. It had to be said that it was really fate. Through the cycle of reincarnation, the Divine Authority system actually went to the Tao mystic realm. Perhaps the Divine Authority system's master would bump into Chu Xiaoqi and Chenju in the future. Hanju deliberately didn't look at this Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal's future. That would be boring. He closed his eyes and continued cultivating. Ultimate Origin World. Dugawu walked in the void, his body surrounded by the 7-colored power of rules. He stared ahead. Dugawu welcomed unprecedented relaxation ever since he was accepted by the Ultimate Origin World. He was extremely glad that he had met Hanju. Otherwise, he might still be wasting his time fighting with the great Tao Fiend Celestials and the Nether race, with both sides unable to cultivate in peace. It's just ahead. I didn't expect the Ultimate Origin World to have such a place, Dugawu muttered to himself. He saw a majestic figure at the end of the dark void. It was faintly discernible, and its true body was difficult to estimate. He approached and saw this mighty figure clearly. It was not a living spirit, but a stone statue. Its posture was filled with hostility, looking like it was roaring at the sky. Even the experienced Dugawu was shocked. What race was this? He raised his right hand and pressed it on the surface of the stone statue. A towering hostility surged towards him and drowned him. After a long while, Dugawu suddenly woke up and gasped. He immediately retreated from the stone statue. Just now, he felt that his soul was about to be devoured. Impossible. He was a great Tao Supreme. Could it be that this stone statue was the legendary Tao creator? That's not right. Why was there a Tao creator in the ultimate origin world? Could it be related to his master? Chapter 1159 800 million years old. Chapter 1159 800 million years old. Dugawu floated in front of the mysterious stone statue. He didn't leave or touch it again. He was very afraid. The mysterious stone statue did not move. It hid in the darkness and would never die. Dugawu flew up and arrived in front of the mysterious stone statue's head. He stared at its face carefully and observed it. The more he looked at it, the more he felt that it was similar to his master. This feeling was very strong. If it was related to his master, that stone statue would contain the strongest power in the ultimate origin world. Dugawu's heart beat faster. Although he acknowledged Hanju as his master, the two of them were not close, and he didn't obtain the latter's inheritance. He knew Hanju's identity. He was the strongest existence at the end of cultivation. Can I pursue master's path if I comprehend the power of this stone statue? The more Dugawu thought about it, the brighter his eyes became. In a world in the Tao mystic realm, on the top of a mountain peak that towered into the clouds, Chu Xiaoqi sat at the edge of the cliff. Beside him was a youth who also faced the sun, as he absorbed the spirit qi of heaven and earth. Boxin OVL. The youth opened his eyes and scratched his head. Grandpa, something feels wrong. Why doesn't this cultivation technique increase dermic powers? It only strengthens the body. I don't want to be a body cultivator. Chu Xiaoqi said without opening his eyes. You were born with a weak physique. You have to strengthen your physique first before it can withstand your powerful soul, and you can soar. Is that so? Don't lie to me. I heard that body cultivators will be stuck when they reach a certain realm. The higher the realm, the less they comprehend. If body cultivators miss the best period of enlightenment, their future will be ruined. Get lost if you don't believe me. Grandpa, the youth grabbed Chu Xiaoqi's arm and shook it with a fawning smile. Chu Xiaoqi opened his eyes and smiled. Cultivate well. To be chosen by me. That's an opportunity that you won't encounter in your lifetime. He was secretly pleased. Was this how his grandfather felt when facing him back then? This youth was not his biological grandson. He didn't even have a son. It was just that he did not want to take in a disciple, and wanted to take in a grandson. So he acted as his grandfather. The youth curled his lips. Yes, yes. At this moment, a figure appeared behind Chu Xiaoqi. Divine Lord, the ultimate sect and the divine clan are at war. This figure wore black armor, a mask and a helmet. His body was surrounded by a black aura, and he looked extremely sinister and mysterious. I understand. You can leave. Continue paying attention to the situation. Yes, the black-armored figure vanished, as if he had never appeared. The youth asked curiously, Grandpa, you seem to be very concerned about the Absolute Sect. Are you related to them? Chu Xiaoqi smiled. One of Grandpa's younger brothers is in the Absolute Sect. He's the sect master. Back then, I protected him as he grew up. Although he's already on his own, Grandpa still worries about him. Grandpa's the best. It's really my honor to meet you. Hee. Although Chu Xiaoqi enjoyed it, he inexplicably felt that this kid was being sarcastic. The grandfather and grandson chatted for a while before continuing to cultivate. 50 million years passed quickly. Hanju's origin age had reached 800 million years. His cultivation level had been increasing. Recently, another supreme rule had been born in the ultimate origin world, but he specially hid it above the 9 supreme rules. As time passed, the supreme rules of the ultimate origin world would increase and widen the gap between it and the other great Tao worlds. How could the development speed of the Creator Lord's great Tao world be slower than that of the Tao creators and the great Tao Supreme's great Tao worlds? The ultimate origin world became stronger and stronger. The cultivators residing there naturally rose in power. More and more great Tao Supremes and great Tao sages appeared. Among them, the number of Freedom Realm experts had already surpassed the number of Freedom Realm experts outside the ultimate origin world. One day, once those at the Freedom Realm erupted, even the number of higher realm experts would far exceed those of the Endless Era. Hanju looked at the ultimate origin world. The world developed even faster after Dugu Wu reconciled with the mighty figures. Dugu Wu represented a prodigy without a racial background. He brought more hope to all living beings. Dugu Wu also spoke up for those prodigies without a background and asked the other races, the great Dauphin Celestials, and the Nether race to help take care of the juniors. The current ultimate origin world was similar to the stage when the endless era had just been established. All living beings were busy cultivating. Most of the battles were for benefit. The ultimate origin world kept becoming stronger, and more cultivation resources were born. Naturally, there were fewer battles. Hanju walked out of the Taoist temple and went to visit Xing Hongxian. Xing Hongxian had gone out several times in the past few years and had a lot to share with him. I went to the chaos to take a look. I feel that the chaos is developing faster than the primordial chaos. It seems that the Tao ancestor will become a Tao creator before Huang Heavenly Venerate Xian Du of the Heavenly Tao also seems to want to create a great Tao world. Unfortunately, his cultivation level is too weak. Husband, what do you plan to do with the Heavenly Tao? Linger has been given the right to supervise the order of the endless era. She has soared. Was it your instructions? Ha ha ha. That brat Chu Xiaoqi has also taken in a grandson. He's imitating you. Xing Hongxian kept talking. Hanju listened most of the time, and only occasionally replied. Although he already knew about this, it was interesting to hear it from her. With the change of eras, the Lord had already become a legend, including the Tao creators. He had already faded out of the understanding of all living beings. In their eyes, the great Tao sages were the strongest. Only by reaching the great Tao sage realm could one understand a higher realm. This was the inevitable pattern of development. It was worth mentioning that Heavenly Venerate Sun had already appeared. The mighty figures who had experienced the great Tao immeasurable calamity back then paid a lot of attention to him. But no one to scheme against him. It was only because he was the Lord's grandson. It was precisely because of this that no matter where Heavenly Venerate Sun went, mighty figures chased after him, causing him to be even more proud and gradually overlap with the future Tao creator. Hanju had never seen the young Heavenly Venerate Sun. This kid worshipped him and had always wanted to walk his path. But Hanju was not interested in him. Heavenly Venerate Sun's limit was that. Hanju could even see how he would die, so he had no expectations for him. In the future, Heavenly Venerate Sun would be killed by the combined forces of the three primordial chaos. That was something that even the future Heavenly Venerate Sun couldn't predict. By the way, Li Yao's great Tao world has already taken form, but she can't create the supreme rules. You have to help her. She's your Tao companion's representative. The other will see you as incapable if there's no Tao creator among your Tao companions. Xing Hongxian suddenly thought of something and smiled teasingly. Hanju smiled and nodded. What about you? Xing Hongxian spread her hands and said, my potential is not good. My comprehension is average. I've already given up cultivating. She stopped cultivating and started enjoying life, after obtaining the invincible power given by him. Hanju smiled helplessly and didn't force her. The two of them interacted for another few hundred years, before Hanju went to Li Yao's Taoist temple. Li Yao was very excited upon seeing him, but she tried her best to restrain herself. The two of them chatted for a while before Hanju guided her to comprehend the basic rules. When Li Yao woke up, she already felt that her senses were completely different. Countless strange thoughts that she had never thought of before appeared in her mind. Chapter 1160 Li Yao and Heavenly Venerate Sun. Chapter 1160 Li Yao and Heavenly Venerate Sun. Li Yao suppressed her excitement and asked curiously, what were those just now? Hanju smiled. I can't say. Such secrets are not something that anyone below the Tao creator can come into contact with. Don't let the others know. I only taught you. Li Yao was moved and looked at him with a gentle gaze. She didn't dare to disturb Hanju anymore ever since the great Tao immeasurable calamity ended. She had always wanted to catch up to him, but she didn't say anything. Is there a limit to the number of Tao creators? Li Yao asked. Hanju asked. Why do you ask? The Tao creator is undying and indestructible, above the rules. If there are too many such powerful existences, it's probably not a good thing. Furthermore, can the blank domain accommodate so many Tao creators? Liao expressed her worries. Actually, she was not the only one. The other mighty figures had such worries. This was also the reason why they fought to become Tao creators first. Hanju smiled. There are no restrictions. The only restriction is that it's very difficult to attain the Tao creator realm. It can't be achieved through hard work. How many years has it been ever since the birth of the chaos? I don't know how many trillions of years, but there have only been 6 Tao creators in total. You're only 800 million years old. Han Huang is the same. You're all too anxious. Li Yao heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that there was no limit to the number of Tao creators. Boxin OVL. She also felt confident after receiving Hanju's guidance. The two of them chatted for a while more. Other than cultivation, the only topic was Han Yunjin. As Han Yunjin's biological mother, Li Yao was usually not worried about him at all. She didn't go out to visit him. It was always him who came to visit her. Hanju suggested that Li Yao could go out for a walk. She wouldn't succeed in becoming a Tao creator in hundreds of millions of years. It was beneficial for her state of mind, and the plan of the rules to relax occasionally. Li Yao asked, "Why can you become a Tao creator in hundreds of millions of years?" "My potential is strong. I have the strongest potential. Otherwise, how could I give birth to a primordial fiend celestial?" Fine. Li Yao suddenly felt that she shouldn't be compared to Hanju. Compared to others, her growth could already be described as unbelievable. Thinking of this, she relaxed. Hanju noticed the change in her mentality and smiled in satisfaction. Li Yao also left the Tao field not long after he left. She first went to visit her son, Heavenly Tao. Han Yunjin was flattered by his mother's arrival and almost lost his manners. After all, this was the first time Li Yao had come to find him. Han Yunjin called his wives and children over and bowed to Li Yao. Li Yao was very surprised. She did not expect her son to be so flirtatious. She was usually busy cultivating and would not pay attention to the outside world, especially her son. She felt that Han Yunjin, who had the backing of the hidden sect, could not be in danger, so she did not care about him at all. After his wives and children left, Han Yunjin poured tea for his mother and asked, "Mother, why are you here? Do you need me to do anything?" Li Yao smiled. "I just listened to your father and came out for a walk. Your father praised you to me. I was wondering if you were really that outstanding. Now it seems that it's true. No wonder the Han family is so strong." Han Yunjin blushed. Cough cough, mother, you must be joking. He was basically the one expanding the Han family. Han Tua, Han Huang, Han Qing'er, and Han Ling did not have children. Han Huang did, but no one knew Chu Xiaoqi's identity. Li Yao asked about what he was doing recently. Han Yunjin replied one by one. "Why don't you create your own great Tao world? How long are you staying in the heavenly Tao?" Li Yao suddenly asked. Han Yunjin was stunned and asked in surprise, "I can also create a great Tao world." He thought that his cultivation level had already reached the peak, so he didn't think too much about it. In any case, he was already immortal and had immense power. Why would he need to cultivate more? He could completely rely on his own strength to suppress the enemy if he encountered a powerful one. He didn't need to personally take action. Li Yao frowned. "How can you be so dispirited? Do you think you can always keep your position as the leader of the Han family when the children become stronger?" Han Yunjin was silent. "That's right, father. Since you're so disappointing, why don't you give me the position of family leader?" A loud laugh sounded as a young man in a beautiful blue robe walked in. He came in front of Li Yao and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Grandma." Li Yao narrowed her eyes. She naturally remembered Heavenly Venerate Sun, the person who had shown in the great Tao immeasurable calamity. She did not expect him to be her grandson. Heavenly Venerate Sun. Ridiculous, how can you use this name? Han Yunjin was shocked and even a little flustered. Heavenly Venerate Sun smiled and said, "This is the name I've chosen recently. How about it, father? Do you feel that it's impressive?" "How impudent. You're not allowed to use this name in the future." "Why? Uncle has no objections." "You don't listen to me?" "Father, I've already grown up." What I said just now was not a joke. Heavenly Venerate Sun and Han Yunjin were at odds with each other, their faces filled with arrogance. At this moment, a terrifying pressure descended, causing Heavenly Venerate Sun to suddenly kneel. His body trembled as he looked at Li Yao in horror. "Grandma, so rude. It seems that your father didn't teach you well," Li Yao said expressionlessly. Heavenly Venerate Sun was shocked. He did not expect his grandmother to be so powerful. Han Yunjin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. With a straight face he said, "Get out and reflect." Heavenly Venerate Sun wanted to leave, but he could not move. "He already offended you like this, but you're still protecting him." Li Yao looked at Han Yunjin unhappily. Han Yunjin said helplessly, "This is not the first time this unfilial son acted like this. He just has a dirty mouth. He has never really disobeyed me." Heavenly Venerate Sun looked up at Li Yao angrily with a dissatisfied expression. Li Yao said, "With his personality, he will attract a calamity sooner or later. Perhaps the Han family's identity can protect him. But what if he offends a powerful relative? He even dares to disdain you, his father. When he becomes stronger in the future, will he look down on your brothers and sisters? Will he look down on your seniors?" The more Han Yunjin listened, the more flustered he became. He recalled Heavenly Venerate Sun in the Great Tao Immeasurable Calamity. He was indeed too arrogant. Heavenly Venerate Sun gritted his teeth. "I'm not someone who can't tell right from wrong." Han Yunjin did not speak up for him this time. He followed Li Yao's words and became more and more shocked. He didn't want the hidden sect to split because of Heavenly Venerate Sun. Li Yao said, "It just so happens that I want to travel. Go to my sword domain and reflect." A silver light appeared between her eyebrows and sucked Heavenly Venerate Sun in. Han Yunjin hesitated. Li Yao asked, "Are you willing to accompany me for a walk?" "I'm naturally willing," Han Yunjin hurriedly replied, mainly because he was afraid that something would happen to Heavenly Venerate Sun. Just like that, the mother and son left the Heavenly Tao and traveled the blank domain. At the same time, in the sword domain, the starry sky was dark. Countless sword shadows were like stars. Heavenly Venerate Sun could not escape this world. He thought that he was only facing the wall to reflect, but when the sword shadows he panicked attacked him. Chapter 1161 Long-Term Seclusion. Chapter 1161 Long-Term Seclusion. Swish. 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 The sword shadows from all directions sped towards Heavenly Venerate Sun, forcing him to dodge. At first he could still dodge, but the speed of these sword shadows became faster and faster. In less than 10 breaths of time, his body was destroyed by the thousands of sword shadows, leaving only his soul. The sword shadows stopped and gave him time to recover his body. Just as he did, the sword shadows attacked again. The cycle repeated. Heavenly Venerate Sun was constantly killed and revived. This torture tormented him. He even cursed Li Yao, but unfortunately, he did not receive a response. At the same time, Li Yao and Han Yunjin left the Heavenly Tao and flew towards the nearest world. "You still have to be wary of this kid," Li Yao said meaningfully. Han Yunjin said, "No matter what, he's still my son. He shouldn't harm me." "Don't you have any questions about his soul?" Boxin COM, what do you mean? Han Yunjin frowned. Li Yao said meaningfully, "Can't you sense that in his previous life, he seemed to have a new soul?" Han Yunjin nodded. "Isn't he a new soul? With his potential, can he be so strong if he's a new soul? Has his cultivation been taught by you since he was young?" "No." Han Yunjin frowned. Previously he had been puzzled. Why did Heavenly Venerate Sun become stronger so quickly when his potential was clearly average? However, he did not think too much about it when he thought of the similar examples that had already appeared among the descendants of the Han family. Now he realized that something was wrong. Li Yao said helplessly, "How can there be so many new souls?" New souls often appear in connate life forms or new races. Most of the descendants of the Han family have their previous lives, including your precious son. I can already sense the power of his great Tao world. This kid must have been a great Tao Supreme in his previous life. Perhaps he hasn't sensed this now, but one day, he will awaken all the memories of his previous life. Han Yunjin was moved. A great Tao Supreme had reincarnated into the Han family? His first thought was that it was a scheme. A great Tao Supreme wouldn't be affected by the cycle of reincarnation. They would either be forced to enter it or on their own accord. No matter which it was, they could choose their background. The providence of the Han family was illustrious, and it was very difficult for ordinary people to reincarnate into their bloodline. The mighty figures were also afraid of misunderstandings and would not easily be affected by karma. However, that was only a guess. Heavenly Venerate Sun was indeed his son. If it was all calculated in his previous life, he would have no children. Li Yao smiled. I'm just reminding you. In any case, the karma between you and your son has been established. I'll help you train him during this period of time. Thank you, mother. Han Yunjin sighed. 10 million years later, Han Ju opened his eyes. He had wanted to enter seclusion for 50 million years, but someone was looking for him, so he had no choice but to stop. Come in. With that, Han Yunjin, who had been waiting outside the Taoist temple for millions of years, entered. Han Tua followed, but he had only waited for tens of thousands of years. Han Yunjin knelt down in front of him and said, Father, please save my son. Han Tua also knelt down and bowed. Han Ju didn't say anything. Han Yunjin immediately told him what had happened to Heavenly Venerate Sun. After being disciplined by Li Yao for 10,000 years, his temperament had changed greatly, making Han Yunjin very glad. In the following years, Heavenly Venerate Sun helped the Han family overcome difficulties and open up many worlds. Later, Heavenly Venerate Sun's cultivation level encountered a bottleneck, and he went to find Han Tua to cultivate. Han Tua taught him for 1,000,000 years and asked Heavenly Venerate Sun to go to the consciousnessless domain to find opportunities. He did not expect him to disappear. I searched for a long time but couldn't find that kid. I can only suspect that it's related to a Tao creator. Han Tua frowned. He was also responsible for this matter. He had wandered in the consciousnessless domain before and knew many places of opportunities, so he recommended Heavenly Venerate Sun go there. It would have been fine if Heavenly Venerate Sun wasn't Han Yunjin's son. It was difficult to predict whether he would live or die. With Chu Xiaoqi's example, Han Tua felt that Han Ju might care about his grandson, so he came with Han Yunjin to seek help. Han Ju said, Everyone has their own opportunities. He just disappeared for millions of years. Why worry? Isn't there a second person among your children who disappeared for millions of years or died young? Han Yunjin hesitated. For some reason, Heavenly Venerate Sun was once the most rebellious, but he was also the one he cared about the most. Han Ju said, You can leave if there's nothing else. That kid won't die. Hearing this, Han Yunjin looked pleasantly surprised. Han Tua heaved a sigh of relief. Han Yunjin bowed and left, but Han Tua stayed. He naturally wanted to ask about the Great Tao world. Han Ju was not biased and allowed him to sense the basic rules. Even if it was only for an instant, it was enough for Han Tua to get on the right track. One had to condense at least 7 supreme rules if one wanted to step into the Tao creator realm. Han Huang and the Tao ancestor, who had been the first to create a supreme rule, had yet to condense a second supreme rule. It would be at least 5 billion years before a new Tao creator appeared. Han Tua hurriedly thanked him after he woke up. Han Ju waved his hand, and Han Tua left. Han Ju shook his head slightly as he looked at his departing back. Among his 5 children, the one who had the least relationship with him was Han Tua. It was mainly because they had only interacted for a short period of time. Han Tua was not the kind of person to behave like a child. To be honest, his eldest son was more reliable than his other children. Unfortunately, his potential was not good. He was only at the level of a chaotic fiend celestial. After his 2 sons left, Han Ju looked at the emails and entered cultivation. The endless era would not bring Han Ju joy before a new Tao creator appeared. Han Ju prepared to enter an unprecedented long seclusion. Tao Mystic Realm. In a grand hall, Formless World stood on a platform and looked down at the dozens of figures before him. Among them were Chu Xiaoqi and Chen Ju. Formless World's expression darkened as he said, Everyone should understand why I called you here. From today onwards, the Tao Mystic Realm is not to fight among themselves anymore. We have to resist the attack of the primordial chaos together. Primordial origin brought billions of primordial life forms and declared that he wants to occupy the great Tao lake. This matter is very important. The entire Tao mystic realm has to join forces to resist him. A mighty figure asked. It's said that you have a mighty figure as your backer. How dare he come? It was no longer a secret that the formless transcendent deity was the backing of Formless World. Formless World snorted. The great deity supervises the entire endless era. How can he be biased? He will indeed help me build the Tao mystic realm, but he won't interfere in the battle of factions. Besides, I don't care about the tiny primordial origin. I'll deal with him. All of you, resist the primordial faction. Since primordial origin dared to come, you can devour his primordial chaos. The mighty figures in the hall looked at each other. No one dared to refute, but many of them were from various factions, so their thoughts wandered. Formless World scanned the surroundings and said meaningfully, "It's time to take sides. You were only mediocre when you came here. You were like a mortal world that the various great Tao worlds don't need. I nurtured you to your current height. I hope you know that this battle is also a test. If you are disloyal, it depends on whether you dare to jump out of this boat." Chapter 1162 100 Creation Heavens Chosen. Chapter 1162 100 Creation Heavens Chosen. The battle between the Tao mystic realm and primordial origin quickly began, attracting the attention of the entire endless era. This was the first such a large-scale war after the great Tao immeasurable calamity ended. In the past, although there were endless wars, in the eyes of the great Tao supremes, they were all small fights. But it was different now. The two factions had no less than 5 great Tao supremes, and more than 100 great Tao sages. It was not only all living beings watching, even the Tao creators were watching. The Tao mystic realm represented the formless transcendent deity. They could use this to probe the formless transcendent deity's bottom line. The Lord didn't care. The formless transcendent deity was the highest status in the endless era. It was precisely because of the Lord that the formless transcendent deity did not dare to act too recklessly, so he had never made any mistakes. It was as if he treated all living beings as equals, but where was absolute equality? Primordial origin dared to be the first to test the formless transcendent deity's bottom line. The various factions naturally supported him. Therefore, both sides had no allies in this battle. A third faction wouldn't dare to interfere. There have been very few pure factions fighting without outside interference since ancient times. Many mighty figures believed that this battle would decide the future of the next 10 billion years. If the Tao mystic realm lost, it meant that the formless transcendent deity was already restricted by the rules and did not dare to act recklessly. If primordial origin was defeated, it meant that the faction of the Tao creator could not be easily challenged. In the third Tao field, Boxin-OVL, Com Hanju opened his eyes. He was already 3 billion years old. This seclusion lasted for 500 million years. He had triggered the system's choice twice in this span of time. As expected, the option would only trigger every billion years after his billionth birthday. The most important thing was that the reward for his billionth birthday was no different from before. He was still speechless even now. The creation heavens chosen had already reached 109. He could draw 100 times today. After 500 million years, the number of supreme rules in the ultimate origin world had already reached 15. He had only revealed 9. The other supreme rules were hidden. He had to keep some trump cards. Hanju first checked the blank domain. The Tao mystic realm and primordial origin were fighting. It had already lasted for millions of years, and it was still difficult to determine the outcome. The two sides involved too many worlds and domains, and there were also many great Tao sages. It was naturally difficult to decide the outcome in a short period of time. Hanju saw Chu Xiaoqi. This kid was already on his own, and had become a capable subordinate of Formless World. This kid still didn't know that his master was also a primordial fiend celestial. Hanju looked forward to how Chu Xiaoqi and Huang Zuentian would interact in the future. Hanju's other grandson, Heavenly Venerate Sun, had already returned. Now, he was obediently helping the Han family expand their territory. This kid had already awakened his memories of his previous life. His identity was one of the 10 absolutes of the first chaotic assembly, Zhou great Tao heaven. Back in the great Tao immeasurable calamity, after seeing the power of Han Ju, Han Huang, and Han Ling, he had an idea. After that, he secretly entered the cycle of reincarnation. He himself had a perfected great Tao supreme cultivation. It was very difficult to sense his actions unless the other party was a Tao creator. Heavenly Venerate Sun was shocked after he awakened Zhou Song's great Tao heaven's will. He never expected that he was Heavenly Venerate Sun. It was precisely because of this that he acted with his tail between his legs and did not betray the Han family. He realized that although the great Tao supreme realm seemed to surpass all living beings, it could not escape the schemes of a Tao creator. Han Ju had no objections to Zhou Song's great Tao heaven. Most of the descendants of the Han family had identities from their previous lives. They didn't care about Zhou Song's great Tao heaven as long as this kid didn't act recklessly. Besides, Heavenly Venerate Sun's outcome had already been decided. Whether the future would change was another matter. Han Ju looked at the others next. The people he cared about were all living happily and didn't encounter any accidents. Han Huang had already condensed a second supreme rule, while the Tao ancestor began to break through to the third. The difference between the two of them was increasing. This showed his understanding of the Tao. Although Han Huang's potential far exceeded the Tao ancestors, his understanding of the rules was far inferior. After all, the Tao ancestor was once the #1 person in the chaos. Creating a lineage was not something Han Huang could catch up to with his potential. It seemed that the Tao ancestor was going to become the first Tao creator in the endless era. Han Ju didn't mind this. After all, the two of them were good friends, although they rarely contacted each other. Han Ju retracted his gaze and rubbed his hands. Divine Might Heavenly Sage bless me, give me a top-grade creation heavens chosen, Han Ju muttered to himself. The creation heavens chosen came from the ultimate origin world. Now that the ultimate origin world was becoming stronger, the creation heavens chosen was definitely stronger than before. Begin. Activating the creation heavens chosen. A random great creation will appear among your descendants. Your descendant Han Wang has awakened an innate great creation heavenly envy ghost star. Your descendant Ru Daolong has awakened an innate great creation superstar. Your descendant Han Emo has awakened an innate great creation mystic heavenly star. Your son Han Tua has awakened an innate great creation primordial war god star. Your grandson Chu Xiaoqi has awakened an innate great creation karma Dao star. Your daughter Han Qing'er has awakened an innate great creation 10,000 sword. Origin star. Your descendant Han Ju has awakened an innate great creation floating light flood star. Your son Han Tua has awakened an innate great creation rule fixed star. Information flashed in front of Han Ju. It only stopped after 100 times. Han Tua actually drew 3 creation heavens chosen. So impressive. Han Qing'er and Han Yunjin had both awakened the creation heavens chosen. Han Ling had another chance and accumulated 2 creation heavens chosen like Han Huang. Chu Xiaoqi had drawn 2 creation heavens went to chosen. The other creation heavens chosen his descendants. There were no repeats, but there were descendants with the same name. Han Ju smiled in satisfaction. It seemed that the creation heavens chosen could be accumulated continuously. 3 times was definitely not the limit. It was also a good thing that his son benefited the most. After all, his descendants were far removed from him. It was troublesome to rope them in. Han Ju looked up. Han Tua, Han Qing'er, Han Ling, Han Yunjin, and Chu Xiaoqi were all in an awakening state. They would be reborn. Han Huang fell behind. Perhaps this was fate. He had already taken advantage of the creation heavens chosen and was ahead of the other clansmen. Han Ju stood up and walked out of the Taoist temple. He first went to find Xing Hongxian. She was very happy to see him. After all, it had been 500 million years. Why were you in seclusion for so long? Aren't you already invincible? Xing Hongxian curled her lips. She already felt bored and numb. Eternal life was no longer so beautiful. Now, she felt that everything had lost its meaning. Han Ju smiled. I have to maintain invincibility. How can there be eternal invincibility? Xing Hongxian asked. By the way, what do you think of the battle between the Tao mystic realm and primordial origin? The formless transcendent deity was the leader chosen by him. Primordial origin was also a primordial fiend celestial. Hanju's attitude was very important. Let nature take its course. It doesn't matter who wins. I can't be bothered. Besides, there are even conflicts between children. How can I care about every one of them? Everyone has their own goals. There's no need to be stubborn. Hanju chuckled and said casually. Chapter 1163 Original Intention and Goal. Chapter 1163 Original Intention and Goal. Xing Hongxian felt that Hanju's words made sense, so she stopped thinking about this question. She changed the topic and voiced her doubts. She was very confused now and did not know what to do. Hanju smiled and asked, Do you remember when you met me? Xing Hongxian nodded. Of course I remember. I'll always remember it. Think about your original intention. There must be something in this world that can make you happy and satisfied. It's just that you've forgotten, just like me. I'm still cultivating diligently because I like to cultivate, Hanju said. Xing Hongxian pondered. Hanju smiled and said, Don't think about it. Go back and take a look around. With that, a black vortex appeared behind Xing Hongxian and forcefully pulled her in. She passed through space and time and returned to the Jade Pure Sect. Outside the Jade Pure Sect, Xing Hongxian landed on the mountain path. Her gaze landed on the herb garden ahead. The herb slaves were busy. She saw a small figure. Hanju. Boxin OVL. COM. Xing Hongxian was stunned for a moment before she suddenly became interested. At this moment, she sensed an aura behind her and immediately hid. She saw a male and female cultivator walking side by side to the entrance of the herb garden. The female cultivator was the young Xing Hongxian. Xing Hongxian sighed as she looked at her past self. This was the turning point of fate. Her feelings appeared in her mind again. At that time, she was a spy of the fiendish cult and a double spy. She lived in fear. Xing Hongxian paid attention to Hanju for the next 2 years. As for herself, she was too familiar, so she couldn't be bothered to care. She discovered that the young Hanju was especially determined and kept a low profile, just like the invincible him. Husband has really never changed. Xing Hongxian sighed in her heart. She shifted her attention to herself. It was time to look at herself from another angle and find out what she wanted to do. Third Dao Field. Hanju brought her back in less than 2 breaths, but to Xing Hongxian it was 10,000 years. She had clearly returned in high spirits. Thank you, husband. Xing Hongxian then walked out of her Taoist temple. Hanju was helpless. Why did this girl suddenly feel younger and more energetic? He stood up and walked out of the Taoist temple to see Qingwaner. Hanju decided to go out for a walk after chatting with his Tao companions. He wanted to see how 100 creation heavens chosen would affect the endless era. Han Tuo, Han Ling, Han Qing'er, and Han Yunjin were very excited, but they needed time to control the newly awakened great creation. Hanju's gaze landed on his descendants. The great creation affected them the most. It could be said that their fate had directly transformed. Hanju split into dozens of clones and contacted his descendants one by one, letting them embark on the path of cultivation. At the edge of the Tao mystic realm, architectural Dharma treasures surrounded a huge beast. This huge beast was like a dragon turtle, and there was a palace on its back. In the palace, Chu Xiaoqi was enjoying the transformation brought by the Karma Tao star. I was indeed born extraordinary. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been recognized by Grandpa. Chu Xiaoqi was secretly pleased. Not long ago, he had returned from the battlefield in failure and was severely injured. He did not expect his talent to be awakened. He was extremely happy. When he grasped this new power, he would definitely be able to kill everyone. Perhaps the burden of defeating primordial origin would fall on his shoulders. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. A man rushed into the hall at this moment. Grandpa, something bad has happened. Senior Chenju was captured by primordial origin. Chu Xiaoqi opened his eyes and frowned. What did the Realm Lord say? The man replied, The Realm Lord is gathering experts, including you. He wants to attack Primordial Origin's position again. Hurry up and prepare. Chu Xiaoqi said in a low voice. No, I have to cultivate for a period of time. Go first. What will change if I go now? I'm confident that I can become stronger. At that time, there's a higher chance of saving Chenju. Besides, Chenju is a great Dao Supreme. He won't die so easily. The man was stunned. He could only accept the order and leave. Chu Xiaoqi took a deep breath and closed his eyes again. He might not be able to last that long. A laugh suddenly sounded, startling Chu Xiaoqi so much that he opened his eyes. He turned around and saw Hanju walking out of the darkness. Chu Xiaoqi was stunned, as if he was struck by lightning. Hanju didn't show his divine light and revealed his true body. As he walked over, he smiled and said, What? You don't recognize me? It seems that I've raised an ingrate. Chu Xiaoqi woke up and hurriedly knelt down. He said with a trembling voice, Grandpa, why are you? The blurry figure in his memories became clear again. He had imagined the reunion countless times, but he did not expect it to be so sudden. Hanju sat down in front of him and smiled. Why am I still alive? Of course not. You must be alive. I've always felt that you're very powerful. Chu Xiaoqi said incoherently. He had not been so excited for a long time. He had been investigating Hanju's traces after he became stronger. Unfortunately, his efforts were fruitless. He had already become a great Dao Supreme, but couldn't even deduce his grandfather's karma. What did this mean? It meant that his grandfather was still stronger than him. He even hoped that his grandfather was the legendary Dao creator. He had once asked Formless World about the Dao creator, but he was stopped. He said not to ask about the Dao creator. That would result in unimaginable consequences. Even Formless World couldn't stop him. Grandpa, Chu Xiaoqi looked at Hanju with all sorts of questions in his heart. He opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. Hanju smiled and asked, Didn't you hear what I said just now? Don't you care about your brother? Chu Xiaoqi came back to his senses. Grandpa, will Chenju die? Yes, Primordial Origin has ulterior motives for capturing him. What should I do? Can you save him? What's his relationship with me? Why should I save him? Should he become your grandson too? Ha ha ha. Hanju laughed as if he had heard a joke. Chu Xiaoqi blushed and felt ashamed. How could he make such a request? He's not worthy of being my grandson. As for saving him, go find your master. You still don't know your master's identity, right? There are 3 primordial fiend celestials in the endless era. Your master is one of them. Hanju's words shocked Chu Xiaoqi. Primordial fiend celestial? Impossible. He instantly thought of many possibilities. Could it be that he had been plotted against? I don't know where to find him. I've awakened my talent recently. I want to cultivate for a period of time before saving Chenju. Chu Xiaoqi said helplessly. Hanju smiled. Then cultivate well. I plan to walk around the Dao mystic realm. You can look for me if you need me. With that, Hanju disappeared. Chu Xiaoqi was stunned. With his cultivation, he actually couldn't capture Hanju's aura at all. He was shocked. His thoughts went to Huang Zuantian again. 3 primordial fiend celestials. What was their relationship? Chapter 1164 Primordial Fusion. Chapter 1164 Primordial Fusion. In the vast purple starry sky, countless primordial purple chi filled the air. This was the primordial origin. The 3 primordial chaos were called Desolate Primordial Chaos, Primordial Origin, and Life Primordial Chaos. They were all named after their own creators' names or creations. Primordial Origin stood in the primordial void as his main body. Endless purple chi coiled around his body, causing his majestic figure to look extremely terrifying. Primordial Origin opened his eyes, and then opened his right hand. A person appeared in his palm. It was Chenju. Chenju was sealed. His body was curled up, and his will did not awaken. Primordial Origin frowned and looked down at him. He muttered, Strange, what's hidden in your body? Even I can't steal this creation. He had targeted Chenju. On the battlefield, Chenju's strength left a deep impression on him. Later, he discovered that Chenju's strength was not only because of his potential, but because of a fortuitous encounter. Therefore, he tried his best to capture him. However, he couldn't seize this opportunity. He stared at Chenju, his eyes emitting a strange light, as if he wanted to see through his soul. After a long while Boxinoviel, com primordial origin trembled. He retracted his hand. Chenju floated in the void, his body emitting a dazzling fire light. The defensive power of creation. Primordial origin was even more curious. What kind of fortuitous encounter was this? It could actually devour his power. One had to know that he was about to condense the first supreme rule. Only less than 5 existences were stronger than him in the entire endless era. Could it be a Tao creator? Impossible. There was no such creation in formless world. Perhaps it was a new product of the endless era. Primordial origin also discovered that the endless era was not only the expansion of the world, but also something completely different from the past. He adjusted his state of mind and stopped trying to snatch Chenju's creation. He would see when he condensed the first supreme rule. Primordial origin seemed to sense something at this moment. He waved his hand and Chenju disappeared. A figure tore through the void and arrived. It was Huang Zuantian. Primordial origin asked, "Why are you here?" Huang Zuantian said, "It's not only me." With that, the void tore apart again, and the majestic Han Huang walked out. Primordial origin's expression became subtle as he saw him. Chenju had the Han family's bloodline. He could deduce this. However, the Han family had countless and even more outstanding descendants. Chenju did not have much interaction with the Han family. "What is it?" Primordial origin asked calmly. Han Huang said, "I asked him to come. Although we work separately, we're both primordial fiend celestials. I have an idea." Primordial origin and Huang Zuantian looked at him, waiting for him to continue. The endless era is so big. Be it me or you, it's impossible for one of us to dominate the endless era. More and more Tao creators will appear in the future. I feel that the 3 primordial chaos can be fused. From now on, we will live and die together. If more primordial fiend celestials are born in the future, they will have to rely on us, Han Huang said calmly, causing primordial origin to frown. Primordial origin looked at Huang Zuantian. His expression did not change. Clearly, he had already learned of this, and had come with Han Huang to persuade him. Primordial origin pondered. The benefit of fusing was that they would join forces from now on. At least they could rely on each other. The downside was that they would not be able to separate in the future. Of course, all of this had to be based on Han Huang's sincere desire to cooperate. With primordial origin's understanding of him, this kid was only domineering, but he was not that scheming. Most importantly, it was the person behind Han Huang. Primordial origin asked, "Who will be the master?" Han Huang shook his head and laughed. "There's no need to prioritize. Let our primordial chaos fuse, and let karma and fate fuse. I can hand the primordial chaos to you if you like power and know how to govern." Huang Zuantian smiled. "I want to cultivate." Primordial origin smiled. "In that case, I have no objections. How can we fuse the primordial chaos?" Han Huang began to describe his idea. Primordial origin and Huang Zuantian felt that it was feasible, but this method was needed. Before leaving, primordial origin handed Chenju over and wanted to ask Han Huang about his attitude. Han Huang said indifferently, "It's common for 2 forces to fight and be captured as long as you don't implicate the innocent." Primordial origin smiled. "Since you're so sincere, I'll let him go. This child has a mysterious creation. His future achievements are immeasurable. Such a descendant is nothing in the Han family." Han Huang disappeared after saying that. Huang Zuantian added, "This child is my disciple's brother. You're holding the line that connects 2 people." Primordial origin threw Chenju to him and smiled. "In that case, I'll give you the favor." "I won't thank you." Huang Zuantian took Chenju and left the primordial chaos. Primordial origin smiled and closed his eyes to cultivate. Under the blue sky and white clouds in the high wall courtyard, a handsome man was practicing martial arts. Hanju sat on the steps in front of the hall and yawned. The handsome man stopped and came in front of him. He chuckled and said, "Grandpa, how's my fist technique just now?" Hanju curled his lips. What a waste of talent. Cultivate. There's no future in practicing martial arts. The handsome man's name was Ru Daolong. He had awakened an innate great creation superstar. The superstar was born with great opportunities. He would surpass his limits every time he was on the verge of death. If he survived, his potential would become even stronger. In other words, the superstar needed to constantly encounter desperate situations. It was very easy for him to die young if he did not have a backing. The trend of martial arts was prevalent in this immortal world, not cultivation. There were no legends of cultivators here. But Hanju knew that those legendary terrifying martial artists were cultivators. He had found Ru Daolong 7 years ago. The two of them were master and disciple. But Ru Daolong had yet to truly develop the potential of the superstar. Ru Daolong curled his lips. What cultivation? I've never heard of it. A group of servants rushed in at this moment. The thin man in the lead wailed. Young master, the neighboring village is bullying us again. Ru Daolong's eyes widened like leopard eyes. He said angrily, they're courting death. Let's go. Hanju lay down and continued to bask in the sun as Ru Daolong left in a hurry. Kid, this current life won't last long. Hanju chuckled. No one heard him. He was talking to himself. It was his habit. Ru Daolong's family background was considered big among mortals. But Hanju saw two immortal emperors fighting. They were getting closer and closer to this world. Their fight would affect this world sooner or later. At that time, the end of the world would arrive. Hanju couldn't be bothered to remind Ru Daolong. He still had dozens of such descendants. He was just bored and came out to play with them. Ru Daolong's personality was truly a perfect match for the superstar great creation. With such a fiery temper, he would definitely encounter many desperate situations in the future. However, he would definitely die if he did not have a backer. There were also examples of descendants with innate great creation dying. But the innate great creation could reincarnate with their descendants. Chapter 1165 Heaven Collapses. Chapter 1165 Heaven Collapses. The first few decades, Ru Daolong met Hanju, was smooth sailing. He married and had children. He went from childish to mature, and took on the responsibility of the village. As time passed, Ru Daolong's heart changed because Hanju didn't age. The legend of Hanju's youth spread over a radius of 10,000 miles, attracting many children to acknowledge him as their master. Hanju didn't refuse, but he didn't really teach them anything. Every day, he would wander around the village with a group of brats. Ru Daolong wanted to seek cultivation techniques from Hanju again, but he was vague. Just like that, the trivial matters of the family made Ru Daolong forget his original intention. 60 years later, he was no longer as lively as when he was young. After dealing with his family matters, he looked at the sky in a daze most of the time. On this day, he found Hanju and chatted. The old Ru Daolong sighed. Grandpa, can you tell me more about the stories you told me in the past? Hanju smiled. I just look young. Actually, I'm old too. I can't remember many things from the past. Ru Daolong sighed. Boxin OVL. Unfortunately, my potential is not outstanding enough. Otherwise, I could have gone out to adventure in the martial arts world when I was young. Ru Daolong sighed. When one was old, they liked to reminisce on their youth. Hanju smiled and asked, how high do you think the sky is? Ru Daolong shook his head and laughed. How can a mortal like me know how tall such a blue sky is? Hanju smiled. However, your words make me very curious. How high is the sky? People often say that if the sky collapses, the sky will collapse. However, when has the sky ever collapsed? Only people who can't withstand age will collapse. Ru Daolong looked at the sky and began to fall into a daze. Hanju stretched lazily and smiled. The sky is about to collapse. Ru Daolong thought that it was a joke, so he did not reply. Not long after, he suddenly saw a point of light appear in the sky. It quickly expanded and streaked across the sky, causing the entire world to lose its color. He was so shocked that he subconsciously closed his eyes. Before he could react, he heard a deafening boom. He suddenly recalled Hanju's words. The sky was about to collapse. After a certain period of time, Ru Daolong felt pain all over his body when he woke up. He saw the torn crimson sky after he opened his eyes. The countless black cracks were like centipedes. It was terrifying. Dust filled his eyes, making him even dizzier. What happened? Ru Daolong crawled up with difficulty and discovered that the surrounding manor had already turned into ruins. Wreckage could be seen everywhere. He saw the heads of his friends and relatives. There was no complete corpse. This scene was like a nightmare, deeply stimulating him. Dong dong dong. His heart beat faster and louder. His mind went blank, and he felt like his body was about to explode. He suddenly saw two figures confronting each other in the sky. He rubbed his eyes with difficulty to confirm that he was not seeing things. How could a person stop so high in the sky? Ru Daolong was terrified. Despair, anger, and fear filled him, causing him to be in a daze and not know what to do. He couldn't accept what he saw, and had a trace of hope. Could all of this be a dream? Don't you want to know those stories? They're right in front of you. A familiar voice sounded. Ru Daolong turned around, and discovered Han Ju standing on a beam in the ruins. That figure was straight, and his robes fluttered. Ru Daolong was shocked. He had never seen Han Ju with such a temperament. The setting sun was like blood as it stood in the world. That bearing shocked him. He came back to his senses and asked with a trembling voice, "Grandpa, what do you mean?" Han Ju turned around and looked down at him. He smiled and said, "I asked you to cultivate in the past, but you didn't like it. Now do you see how powerful cultivators are?" Cultivator? Ru Daolong suddenly woke up. His body trembled as he looked up at the sky angrily. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Is all of this done by cultivators?" Han Ju smiled and didn't say anything. Ru Daolong suddenly thought of something. He looked at Han Ju and asked, "You're also a cultivator? Why aren't you protecting them? Can you live if I don't make a move? Then why don't you protect them? Are they related to me?" Han Ju interrupted him and asked coldly. His expression became unprecedentedly cold, causing Ru Daolong to panic. "I came to you only for you. All these years, I didn't know your village anything. You will definitely die if I leave today." Ru Daolong lowered his head and grabbed the stone beside him with both hands. He grabbed until his fingernails were about to overturn, and blood overflowed. Han Ju stared at him and said, "I know you're angry now, but you will naturally understand all of this when you embark on the path of cultivation. As for whether you want revenge, that's your business. I'll leave those two for you to deal with. Daolong, it's time for me to leave. You should walk your own path from now on. Aren't you regretting your lack of drive when you were young? Now you have to start over. Such an opportunity depends on whether you can grasp it. I taught you a cultivation technique, but you delayed it for 50 years. You might have been able to save them if you had learned it back then." Han Ju waved his right hand, and a memory entered Ru Daolong's mind. Ru Daolong fell asleep. In a void in the Dao mystic realm, two figures kept crossing paths. All sorts of mystical powers changed unpredictably and collided. They were Chun Ju and Chu Xiaoqi. Chu Xiaoqi laughed wantonly. "Feel my karma power?" Chun Ju's lower body was condensing again. He exclaimed, "It's indeed powerful. It's even stronger than Primordial Origin's karma mystical power. I didn't expect you to have such talent." Chu Xiaoqi flew in front of him and retracted the power of karma. He smiled proudly and said, "Of course. Otherwise, why would my grandfather take a liking to me back then? By the way, my grandfather is in the Dao mystic realm. Do you want to see him?" The Chun Ju shook his head. "Why should I see your grandpa? My grandfather is very powerful. I've seen many powerful people. You and I are also considered powerful. My grandfather is different." "Oh, he's a Dao creator?" "Perhaps not, but perhaps yes. Do you really not want to meet him? This might be your greatest opportunity." Chu Xiaoqi said proudly, making Chun Ju silent. What if? Thinking of Chu Xiaoqi's opportunities, his potential was clearly not monstrous, but he always followed closely behind him. Chu Xiaoqi smiled and said, "Let's go. We can rest." Chun Ju did not refuse anymore. The two of them immediately left the void and entered the mortal world at the bottom of the Dao mystic realm. Han Ju specially opened a back door for Chu Xiaoqi. Only he could capture his aura. At this moment, Hanju was fishing in the mountains when Chu Xiaoqi and Chenju appeared beside him. "Grandpa." Chu Xiaoqi came over and giggled. He returned to his youthful personality in front of Hanju. Chenju stared at Hanju in shock. He couldn't see through the other party's cultivation at all. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.